Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to this Sunday evening afternoon. I hope you are all doing fantastic because, you know, I like it when you all are doing good. So far in the sandbox, we have Big Jerry, the True Democratic North, and Grand Theft Autobot. Welcome, please. As my unofficial producers, give me some thumbs up that you can hear and see me so I don't get all paranoid. And also let me know if my volume is good. It's weird. It's I had to do the new mic thing and now I don't know if all my settings are right, so I don't know how loud I'm coming through on OBS with my videos that I'm recording. Not that I'm recording any videos right now, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. The stream is starting, meow, Grand Theft Autobot. Well, we have a lot to go over today. You know, just my standard, a whole bunch of tabs on the same story because I like to be in depth and detailed, and that is driving me crazy right now. Grand Theft Autobot saying the volume is a little low. Okay. Is this any better? I did a thing in my OBS. How is the volume now? Is it louder? Are you hearing me okay? Yeah, I've been working on that TYT essay and I'm worried I'm overdoing it. But, you know, if you look at my drawings, you can kind of tell I'm very, very, very detailed orientated. And so I can't help it. And then my autistic brain, I'm trying to find like all the right wording for everything. And sometimes when you're trying to get the right wording, you say a lot of things because you want to be like, okay, well, I want to cover that angle and that angle and that angle and that angle. And before you know it, you have like a few paragraphs over something that you just wanted a quick point on. So Grand Theft Autobot, yes, it is better. Okay, I did the thing in OBS. I upped it. So that's part of the reason why it's taken me so long, but also, you know, going down rabbit holes like, oh, I'm going to do this, and now I need to add that graphic and this graphic, and oh, I should probably do this, because the other thing with it is I want to really, really, really make sure that people know the information I'm presenting has sources. You know, when I cite a source, I show the source. And so I want people to know where my information is coming from, so they know that I'm just not pulling it out of my ass and making it up, unlike what they do. And so, yeah, it takes me a bit longer, and then I have to like rewatch certain clips to be like, okay, was I hearing that right? What was the context? Try to look at the clip objectively to make sure that I'm not reading my own biases into it, which is, you know, difficult. And sometimes I'll look at a tweet and then I have to read, oh, there's a tweet underneath it. There's one account on Twitter that notoriously will post things from leftists who have gone a little bit skewing to the right. That's my right there. Yeah, that's my right. And they do something very interesting. I don't know if people notice it, but they will quote tweet something with commentary, or they will tweet something with an image of a tweet and give commentary. And so then if you search out the source of that tweet and you look at it, then you might realize, oh, that was just the first part of the tweet. If you go down to the second tweet, it does kind of clear up their perspective, and the way that that account was framing it wasn't honest. And I want to make sure that the way I am framing everything is honest. You know, I don't want to take things out of context with it, because I don't need to. Jank and Anna are doing enough wrong that I don't need to take anything out of context. It's there. I don't need to add to that shit pile and make up something. So yeah, but I got the segment of the LA fires done. The segment about crime/Venezuela is almost done. I just need to make commentary around one tweet. And again, I'm just trying to put in words what I want, trying to condense it. Hopefully during the editing process, I can eliminate some of the wording that I'm doing. Maybe cut out some stuff, because it's long. They're long. They're super, super long. And then once I'm done the crime/Venezuela, it's talking about the union. That actually shouldn't take too long, because I just have a couple things on it, and then it's going to be like, so go check out Hank from Winners and Losers to learn more about it. And then it's going to be things they accuse the left of that they know are lies. Things like going around insisting that we're wanting the term birthing person, how we want surgeries for children and things of that sort for trans children, which again, lies. Also how if there's even a % disagreement, then we will cast a person out, which is again a lie. That's not true. There's a difference between having standards and loyalty, you know? So yeah, it's darn it, there was a phrase in my head that I had earlier about that I thought, oh, that would be a good phrase to add into the essay, and now I can't remember it. Something, okay, I'm remembering bits of it. I need to write it down while I'm remembering little tiny bits of it. Sorry. This is my brain on oxygen. Let's see, go over here, put that there. No, oh, come on, can't I pick up where not going to let me pick up where I left. Okay, there we go. What was it? Something about how the left puts everyone. Something, oh, this is my brain trying to figure things out. And it's not Jake and Anna, it's the right. Something about like the left puts compassion, leads with the compassion above all else, where the right puts loyalty above all else. Something like that. It sounded a lot nicer when I originally thought of it. I'm just letting you know. I'm just laying it down. Okay, anyway. Hello, Germ. Welcome to the SandBox. You notice I'm looking at you guys now. See, I'm looking over there. I'm looking at the SandBox now, because I changed around my desktop. So see. Jerem, type it down, write it down, maybe search some keywords. I do the same thing, damn memory. Well, when I relax and just listen to music and stuff like that and let my mind kind of go, I should be able to remember the exact phrase. I just have to be more in the moment sometimes and realize that was really good because I'm thinking, oh, I'm definitely going to remember that. And then I totally don't. Ah. But yes, so a lot to go over today. How are we doing for viewers? Okay. Also been working on a drawing. I got some progress done on it. Still ways from getting done. Some of you in the SandBox know who I am drawing right now. Also, I posted a video, like one that's not a clip, one that's not part of a live stream, but an actual video, just my Canada Day message. Please go out and, please go out. Please head over and watch it after this. Give it a view to help it up. It's just going to be one of those days where words just kind of fumble out of my mouth. Yeah, just going to be help increase the views on it. That would be nice. Got some interesting feedback under it, and I'm just like, I always wonder, do I actually respond to people who leave comments? Do I push back? Do I get into arguments? That sort of thing, because somebody is like, oh, the veil is slipping off, and somebody who I recognize their name. I don't know how often they actually watch my program anymore, but you know, I recognize the name. And I'm like, how would you assume the veil, like what veil, first of all, what is slipping off? Like what do you think I'm now exposing? Because I had a Canada Day message, but if you actually watch it, you realize what the message is that, yeah, I'm grateful to be here, but, you know, I don't really have pride in the country, but that's, you know, I want to work towards the country that, you know, was sold to us, the idealized version of it, which I don't think is a bad thing. And then I called out capitalism and the politics and all that sort of stuff. So I'm like, that's been a consistent viewpoint of mine. uh But if all you're doing is reading titles and you pair that with one that I did, a live stream I did not so long ago where I put the very clickbait title in, something along the lines like, at this point, it would have been better to have Pierre Poilievre as prime minister. But without actually hearing my reasoning, then yeah, if you're not paying attention to what I'm saying, it's easy to make assumptions about what I'm saying. Because more and more I'm standing by my reasoning as like, you know what, it might have actually been better to have Pierre as prime minister. Because if the situation had been reversed and he had a minority government, nothing would be done. There wouldn't be people floor crossing to his party, and he is unable to charm the world. He wouldn't have given that Davos speech. He wouldn't have been able to sway people on an international stage and think that he was, you know, charismatic and all that sort of stuff. He wouldn't get people who just kind of passively take in politics. He wouldn't be able to charm them, like not at all. And then the liberals would actually be pushing back against a lot of these policies. Now, the trick in that is that they would push back against his policies to get it to where the conservative point is. So they would overdo it, underdo it, that sort of thing. Because the Carney government right now is just getting away with so much, and we're going to be getting into some of that in the live stream, that I don't think Pierre would be able to get away with. But so many liberals are just like, do you know what? It's all good. We have our liberal leader. He's attractive, as in, you know, he's competent and well articulated and all that sort of stuff. So we're just going to unplug from politics and make, you know, it's all good. It's in good hands. It's in good hands. We don't need to pay attention. And so he's doing all this stuff that it's like a conservative wet dream. But there's no pushback because the conservatives are loving what he's doing. And the liberals are so partisan that and cowardice that they're not doing anything. And so they're not bringing attention to the policies that he's pushing through. Because even if the liberals would vote for some of the conservative things that Pierre Poilievre would put through, they would still be bringing attention to it. The public would be made aware, unlike what's happening now. Because I don't know if you know all the stories I'm going to be covering today, but it's getting really bad. It's just like, wow, no, any illusion that we have a liberal government is completely out the door. Not that I had much of one to begin with. Hello, hermeteorologist. Welcome to the SandBox. So it's annoying. I think the hair on this side of my head looks better than this side of my head. And I won't be looking this way too much because that's not where the SandBox is anymore. So, but out of habit, I'll still continue to look that way until I realize, all right, that way, gotta look that way. Anyway, but why don't I show you the progress I made on my drawing? Still got a lot of work to do, just warning you, but here we go. A lot of work to do on that still. But it's getting into the stage where I get a little like, because I have to start smudging the face. And when you do that, it's harder to correct mistakes. But that's when it really pops and starts looking accurate, and then I can start darkening it better and all of that sort of stuff when I smooth it out by smudging the lead on the face. And then again, fortunately, since all of his little stubble is dark, I can add that after I'm done everything. So he's actually going to age a fair bit when I'm done. So yeah. And then like the dark in the background will probably get darker, and I tend to start light and layer in the dark. Because, if you really press that dark down to begin with, if you need to erase it, it's not necessarily going to work. And I work with a lot of negative space to make my highlights as opposed to trying to erase it or using a gel pen afterwards. So yeah, there's that. There is that. And I was like, all right, I was going to look at a picture I used to have up there. It's not up there anymore. I need to put it up again somewhere. A drawing I did of tulip used to be on the wall over there that I would look at every now and then. Anyway, why don't we get into the news of the day? Okay, so I clicked on this one. Let's see if my news will actually click on the right screen, or if you're going to get Inception. Oh no, you get my YouTube feed. That's what you get. Let's go to, where is it? Where are you? There we go, this one. And then we go to here, and then I go to there. There we go, that's better. You see, I run into this problem where sometimes it doesn't go to the one that I wanted to initially. And I did a window capture as opposed to just a screen capture. That way, when I like hover over certain things, like what I'm doing right now, you don't see it. Or if there's a pop-up and stuff like that, you don't see it because it's a window capture versus a screen capture. So it is cleaner this way, but hits and misses because I have to update it every time I do a new block of tabs. Hello, Rusty. And hello, Philip. Philip Blair. Let's see. Rusty saying Doctors Against Genocide demand to free Dr. Hussam Safia from Israeli detention as he may be ended in a week or two. Please spread the word. Call anyone that can help. I've seen things about that going on online, and I just heart breaks. I wish there was more that I could do, but I have zero reach. And we will be talking about, some issues with that. And Philip Blair, Happy American Indian Holocaust Remembrance Acknowledgement and Truth and Reconciliation Day in the United States. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we get into the news? I get distracted so easily, but you all know that. That's like part of my charm at this point. At least it has to be if you're still sticking around, because if you found this annoying, the way that my brain works and the way that I jump all over the place and get distracted, then you probably wouldn't still be watching. So this is like the enduring characteristics that you've come to expect of me, and I will never let you down on that. So Emma Vigeland had just tweeted this out, and it's a good reminder to let people know how long this has been going on. She says it's been 1,000 days since the genocide in Gaza began. I'll never forget the overwhelming feeling of dread and horror knowing the hell Israel would unleash on October 8th. Their sadism surpassed my wildest expectations. Free Palestine, always and forever. Yeah. So, yeah. Hello, Jader, my wings. Welcome to the SandBox. Sorry, I'm so getting distracted. But you've come to love that about me, I'm sure. Yeah, so heartbreaking, like absolutely heartbreaking that this has been going on for so long, and we'll be getting into it, but a lot of the governments, especially here in Canada, are still very complicit with the genocide that is still happening. There's still time to end it before everyone is wiped out. Because from the get-go, I've been saying, Israel will stop for one of two reasons. They complete what they set out to do, or other nations force them to stop. And right now, I'm not seeing the other nations forcing them to stop. And it's devastating to think that we could live in a world that we can see this with our own eyes. It's being broadcasted as the first live stream one. There's so much overwhelming evidence from the leaders of Israel, from the IDF soldiers. They're gleeful about it. They're sending it out themselves. They're giving us the evidence. No search has to be done for evidence. You just have to go into the IDF algorithm on TikTok, and you get more than enough evidence to see what is happening. And it's still ongoing. The global shame of this, there's no other way around it. Just the absolute global shame. So here we have, I've been covering a story that's been going on for a little while, because it's all right, just need to plug in the headphones. I thought it'd be all kind of said and done, but the thing about the Zionists is they are pretty damn persistent. And so this little tiny exhibit that could is still plucking along, but it's getting more and more pressure from, again, government officials and Zionist organizations to be shut down. And that is the Museum of Human Rights here in Canada. It's in Winnipeg, Manitoba, has an exhibit about Palestinians in the Nakba. And the Zionist outrage over this has been just so disproportionate to what the exhibit is, and so wrong. But now we have the Heritage Minister chiming in, Mark Miller.
Controversial exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is...
Thing is that this should not be considered a controversial exhibit.
set to open to the public on Saturday. And today, the museum opened its doors to the media for a preview. CTV's Harrison Shin joins us now live with the details. So Harrison, can you tell us a little bit more about this exhibit?
John, the exhibit is called Palestine Uprooted, Nakba Past and Present. The museum says it explores the human rights violations about Palestinians who continue to face displacement. But some critics, including a board member who resigned, say it is one-sided.
Unlike the rest of the entire telling of everything in that area. It's kind of like, they'll say, oh, the Nakba, the story that they're trying to tell is one-sided, but whenever they talk about October 7th, they never point out how one-sided that is. They never talk about what was happening leading up to it, what the side of the Palestinians might have been in that situation. That is completely one-sided. It's kind of like, how they want the the one-state solution where Israel is Israel's in charge of everything. They only want one side of the story ever told, because if people start learning the truth, yeah, I'm for a one state where everyone has equal rights. Everyone is treated the same. Everyone has access to all the same information, facilities, land, work, all of that sort of stuff.
And we were asked, get out. Just one suitcase per family.
Nakba means catastrophe in Arabic. It is commonly used by Palestinians to describe mass displacement during the 1948 Palestine War. The exhibit features video testimonies from Palestinian Canadians, art, photos, and more. Several Jewish groups, including the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, have raised concerns to the museum, saying the exhibit could fuel anti-Semitism and lacked meaningful consultation with the Jewish community.
There's plenty of consultation with the Jewish community. They just not with the Zionists. And again, this isn't, if you want one-sided, you just go and see every other piece of media out there. It's all from the Zionist perspective. This is finally giving the other side a breath of air.
One museum board trustee, Mark Berlin, resigned over the exhibit, accusing the museum for putting, quote, ideology instead of accurate history. The museum CEO says it met with Jewish groups in many meetings discussing its work on anti-Semitism and hearing critiques.
One, I think people want to see this work as a binary of one side versus two sides, and it isn't. It's human rights work. It's complicated. It's about actually how do we find our shared humanity in our through our storytelling. One of the critiques, much of the critique has come from people certainly who haven't been to the museum, and in many cases, or all cases, people who haven't seen the exhibit. And so we're inviting people to see the exhibit so that hopefully that will reassure them.
The CIJA says it is calling on the Canadian Heritage Minister Mark Miller to hold museum leadership accountable. They are
So CIJC is the APAC of Canada.
Also concerned about educational materials connected with the exhibit, saying that can have real-life consequences such as, quote, discrimination, bullying, and assault targeting Jewish students.
It could have real-life consequences, as in people actually know the history. So a little bit more from the article. Heritage Minister Mark Miller said Monday the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg has erred on how it curated an exhibit about displaced Palestinians. In an interview with the Canadian Press on Monday, Miller said the museum should change how it portrays the current conflict between Israel and Palestinians and update the museum's oversight. So he did bow down to the Zionist lobby that contacted him. So what, you want to change how it portrays the current conflict? You mean you don't want them to be honest, is what you're saying. He says, it isn't up to me to speak or insert myself in the curation of any particular exhibit, but manifestly you cannot deny the fact that this is an exhibit that is born in controversy, and perhaps some of it could have been avoided, Miller said. There is no way it could have been avoided. The fact that it existed, the Zionists made it into a controversy. This shouldn't be controversial. This is history, actual history that happened. So the museum says it will provide comment, but has not yet done so. In an interview Monday, Miller said he visited Winnipeg Museum Thursday morning and was troubled by how the exhibit portrayed the conflict that started in October 2023. Now, you see, I'm troubled with how you just framed that sentence, because the conflict did not start in October of 2023. That would be problematic if you suddenly said, okay, you're only allowed to show this exhibit from the perspective of Zionists starting on October 7th. No, because the conflict started way before October 2023. So just want to skip down some. So Jewish groups and the Israeli government mounted a campaign to have the exhibit reworked or canceled, arguing it lacks context and threatens to further fuel anti-Jewish hate in Canada. Yeah. Opponents say the museum failed to do a whataboutism. Yeah. Arab and Muslim groups have hailed the exhibit as a rare attempt to examine hard truth and have shaped the current violence in the Middle East. The museum CEO told the Canadian press earlier this month that many exhibits are meant to tell one community's story and raise awareness instead of telling a comprehensive story about multifaceted events. Miller did not weigh in on whether the exhibit needed to be included more information about Arab states in the 1940s. Instead, he said the museum should have allowed its board to see the exhibit before it opened publicly. Since when? Since when? Since when has it been any of your business? You could layer on many other complexities around the 1948 leading up to the present day, but I do have to be careful as the minister in charge of an independent organization like the museum, Miller said. Let's see. Miller also said it's unfortunate that the exhibit meant to explain how Palestinians have experienced history has been greeted by an uproar. Well, you're adding fuel to that fire. Because here we have something that he said 2 weeks ago. This is Mark Miller right here. This is Mark Miller. Him, there. You see? That is him. That is him. And what did he say 2 weeks ago?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Suffice it to say that I am aware of these allegations, but I think the member would join me in saying that it is not the place of the minister or anyone in this house to dictate museum policy and what is curated and what is not. Thank you.
Yep. It is not your responsibility to dictate what a museum curates. If only Mark Miller from 2 weeks ago would talk to Mark Miller of today. Avi Lewis has spoken up about this, leader of the federal NDP. He says this is completely out of line. Minister Miller says it isn't up to me to speak or to insert myself in the curation of any particular exhibit, and then he does exactly that. His comments are a direct attack on the independence of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, exactly what the Museum Act is meant to prevent. Because imagine if the government always had say in how museums are allowed to portray our history here. There'd be a lot of unknowns, and it's still problematic with how much we do not know what's happened in this country. So Avi says the story of the Nakba needs to be told. It's a hard history to confront. Israel's independence was achieved with massacres, ethnic cleansing, and forcible displacement of over 750,000 Palestinians. And it's a story that's not over. All of those assaults on human dignity and fundamental human rights continue to this day. This is the very purpose of the museum, like CMHR, to shine a light into the corners of history and connect historical events to the present. Public education informed by the principles of justice and human rights. The error that needs to be rectified is not the exhibit, it's the heritage minister's unacceptable political interference. He should retract his comments and apologize, and leave curating to the curators. I concur. And so George Stephanopoulos Did I say that right? George Stroumboulopoulos. Stroumboulopoulos? I've heard his name so many times. He is a name that I've heard because he's in media. George Stroumboulopoulos had this little video out. And he also says museums aren't meant to settle arguments. They're meant to deepen our understanding of them.
Oh, the government. A human rights museum should never be interfered with, nor need permission when it comes to acknowledging human suffering. And if political pressure decides whose pain gets exhibited and whose gets erased, then it's not history we're protecting, it's power. You don't defend human rights by censoring human suffering. And the job of a human rights museum, as imperfect as any organization like that might be, is to tell the truth. All of it. Because the truth doesn't stop being true just because it's inconvenient or it hurts your feelings or you don't want to have to own up to it. You're allowed to oppose it. You're allowed to protest it. That's freedom. But to stop it means one of two things. It means you deny that that suffering happened, or you acknowledge it happened, but it's not worth getting remembered. And for a government of Canada who spends an awful lot of time, money, and energy talking about sovereignty and independent voice and our voice, to suddenly act all interfere like this, come on. We see through that. I cannot wait to go back to Winnipeg and visit the Palestine Uprooted exhibit at the Museum for Human Rights.
Hear, hear. Now, I want people to understand something about this because even when I found this out, I'm like, you're kidding, right? So Jake here is just saying the absurd, absolutely psychotic hysteria the Zionists in Canada whipped themselves into over a tiny museum exhibit with a smaller footprint than the bed I sleep in every night, Free Palestine. And so he was quote tweeting this person who says, I've now had a chance to visit the CMHR's Nakba exhibit, and the controversy over the exhibit is outrageous. It's a tiny exhibit of only a couple panels. Israel's atrocious violence in Gaza is neutrally characterized as a military campaign. There are poems about empathy. So if we go back here, let's see. There. Yeah, okay. You see that? It doesn't give me a preview. Okay, you see that screen there? Let's click somewhere else there. That's the exhibit. That is pretty much the exhibit. You've seen pretty much the entire exhibit through this video. It's not like it was taking up, an entire wing of the museum. It is a tiny little exhibit in the corner of one of the floors. And yet Zionists are shrilling their voices over just any exposure to the truth. Just absolutely absurdity of it. That how dare any perspective than theirs gets through. That this tiny itty bitty little exhibit has any light shone on it. I think it's really kind of pathetic because the amount of attention they're bringing to this exhibit, if they had just kept their mouth shut, nobody would know this exhibit is going on, except if you're in my Twitter algorithms, then you would probably know. But the general public at large would have no idea that this tiny little exhibit was going on. Absolutely uncalled for what they're doing. Because like last year when I went to the Palestinian festival in my area, which is coming up again soon in a couple of weeks, and I plan on attending, they had, on the streets that were cordoned off for it and stuff, they had a car with bullet holes, a beat up car with bullet holes in it to represent the car that Hin Rajab was in, with how many times it was shot up. They had a relief of what Gaza looked like before and after the bombing and stuff like that. They also had some other information kind of scattered around. That was probably a larger exhibit than what you would see at that museum. But the Zionists are freaking the fuck out. So here we have Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East just saying the Canadian Museum for Human Rights continues to face relentless attacks over its important exhibit featuring the stories of Palestinian dispossession. It is therefore profoundly regrettable to see Mark Miller join the Israel lobby in undermining the work of the museum. Although he has initially declined to interfere with the museum's programming, Miller has recently made comments disparaging the exhibit, alleging that it has errors and failures that must be rectified. This is an alarming threat to the independence of the museum and the ability to tell human rights stories without political interference, and gives fuels to extremist voices who want to silence Palestinians. Join nearly 10,000 Canadians in emailing Mark Miller in support of this. I just want to make sure that this does not expose any of my information when I open it. Nope, okay. There we go. So I'm going to toss this into the SandBox so that you can sign this as well. Add your voice to it. I'm going to do this and close some of these tabs. I'm still talking about this sort of stuff. Just want to close these tabs. I need to leave that one open though, so I can sign it afterwards. Because you know, it's not like I want to put my postal code and stuff in this. So over 12,000 actions have been made already. So yeah. Please, if you're a Canuck, give this a sign and put pressure on Mark Miller to shut the fuck up. You know, if one Israeli lobbyist or Zionist lobbyist can get him to make horrific remarks like he did about it, then hopefully if enough of us push back, he might actually retract it. But that could be difficult because of this next article I'm going to get into. This is from the Maple, and it's a bit long, so I might end up just scooching through some of it, but it's important. And so the Maple, this is from David Mastrosky. Have I put that graphic in here yet? Image. Add existing. Should be. There we go. Okay. And then I will move that down, shrink it. It's taken me long enough to do this. There we go. There we go. There, it's in there now. It's in there now. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, I've now added it to the news screen so I can pop it up when I need to. Yeah. Anyway. So the Jewish supremacist ideology motivating genocide has widespread support among Canada's elites. From its inception, Zionism has been a violent colonial ideology. In the state of Israel, founded through decades of Zionist migration and anti-Palestinian violence, is a perfect distillation of Zionism, not a departure from it. Zionism is Israel's state ideology. In the 78 years since Israel's creation, which was finalized in an organized and systemic ethnic cleansing campaign, Israel has terrorized its neighbors, swallowed up Palestinian land, and devoured its inhabitants, and is committing genocide to destroy the lives of those who remain. Israel is an explicitly Jewish supremacist state, and perhaps the only one left in the world where supremacy is openly, proudly, and formally enshrined in law and expanding in its scope. There's a range. Yeah, okay, no, United States is well on its way. Okay, it's not there yet. There's a range of opinions within Israel's political leadership, but all factions believe in supremacy enforced through some level of violence. And so that's the thing when people say, well, Netanyahu is unpopular, won't make it to the next election, blah, 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 blah. The issue is the ideology is popular in Israel with the other leaders. So they might not like Netanyahu for a handful of reasons, but his stance on what he's doing to the Palestinians is not one of them. That's probably something that's kept his support there. And so if he steps down, if he gets voted out, whatever happens to him, there's plenty of others that will step up and continue this. Some of them will even be worse. It's the system there. So, in short, Zionism is a hateful ideology guiding a state that has committed the worst crimes of the 21st century in its name. Zionism is a state ideology doesn't make it less hateful than if it were relegated to the fringes. Instead, it just means it has succeeded to the fullest extent. This is undoubtedly true in Israel. It's also true in Canada in a different way. Zionism has achieved more explicit mainstream support than any other openly supremacist movement at this point in time. Zionism and Jewish Canadians. So Zionism is so rampant in Canada's Jewish community that it has effectively become more important than Judaism, though many, if not most, Jewish Canadians say the two are actually one. Many anti-Zionists dispute the assertion that in theological terms, but I don't care about these debates, in the same way that theological schisms in Christianity are of no interest to me outside of the odd late-night Wikipedia search. What I am interested in, however, is examining how much of the community falls on each side. By this measure, it's evident that anti-Zionists are losing the battle. Nearly 3 years of genocide involving some of the most depraved acts of violence and cruelty witnessed this century has reduced the support Israel receives globally, with a recent poll finding it to be the world's most disliked country. Mass support for Israel among Jewish Canadians, however, has persisted. Wow. There's a lot of shitty countries out there for Israel to be at the bottom. I think countries that execute people for being gay and things like that are bad too, but this is why I don't do these games of which is the worst country, which is the best country, because it's all a matter of perspective. Some countries are the best for some people, some countries are the worst for some people. But yeah, Zionists, especially ones that go traveling around the world and stuff, really have not helped getting into people's favor with the state of Israel. Seen some videos on how they act in other nations, and yeah, they're not liked as tourists. So an assortment of polling of Jewish Canadians have conducted between February 2024 and November 2025 has found, and take this with a huge grain of salt, everyone here knows how I feel about polls. You know I don't like them. I don't know how these polls were worded. I don't know who was polled, all of that sort of stuff, unless you were looking to each and every single one of these detailed. Also, again, do you need it to know that this is the case? When you see how Zionists are treated in the media, you see how Zionists who attack pro-Palestinian protesters are treated, how they're let off, how you see how pro-Palestinians are treated by authorities. Do you need a poll to know this is true? So 94% support the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. 84% are emotionally attached to Israel, the highest level since the survey began in 2018. 71% don't believe Israel is committing genocide. 64% believe it's anti-Semitic to say Israel is committing genocide. 61, it's anti-Semitic to tell the truth. 61% oppose an arms embargo on Israel. 55% categorize Israel's action in Gaza as either self-defense or hostage return, compared to 24% as either war crimes, ethnic cleansing, or genocide. So again, they are just polling the Jewish community with this one. I think the community at large would not be polled the same way. So 53% disagree with the claim that Canada should do more to protect civilians in Gaza. 48%, a plurality, believe Hamas is to blame for the starvation in Gaza, while just 17% blame Israel. Another 13% believe there was no famine or even widespread hunger. 1% identify as anti-Zionists. 1%. The survey found 94% effectively support Jewish supremacy in Israel, also found that only 51% explicitly identified as Zionists, which led some anti-Zionists to declare victory. They were wrong to do so. As I quipped in the response to reporting to the survey poll, vast majority of Canadian whites say Canada has right to exist as a white state, but half don't identify as racist. In addition, the community is represented by and made up of explicitly Zionist organizations, from synagogues, schools to camps, to community groups. Is the largest sender of charitable donations from Canada to Israel. At least $1.7 billion in donations were sent from 2018 to 2024, and an examination of contributions per year reveals them to be overwhelmingly Jewish charities. Supplies a stream of members as soldiers willing to die and kill for Jewish supremacist state of Israel, a pipeline unlike any other that exists among Canada's hundreds of demographic groups. In May, nearly 3 years into the genocide, an estimated record-breaking 60,000 people marched in Toronto's annual pro-Israel walk. I covered that when it happened, and it is disgusting. And just even what some of those people who were marching were saying to some of the protesters was disgusting. It was a hate march. It wasn't a march to just celebrate the fact that they were Jewish and, Jewish solidarity and all that sort of stuff. It was a Zionist hate march. I view this with the same sort of scorn as the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden, organized by the German-American Bund, which drew more than 20,000 people. One difference does stick out, though. Unlike any other genocide before it, including the Holocaust, the Gaza genocide has been live-streamed since day one and broadcast to all of us. This hasn't shattered Jewish Canadian support for Israel. In fact, it has strengthened the support and emotional attachment of many, as seen in the open radicalization of some prominent Jewish figures. Zionism and the broader establishment. It's clear Zionism has a wide support among Jewish Canadians, to the extent unrivaled by any other communities relative to whatever form of extremism and supremacy may exist among them. ISIS, for example, was broadly reviled by Muslim groups globally, and they fought, killed, and died to defeat it. But this level of support for Zionism among Jewish Canadians isn't enough to call it the most successful hate group in Canada. That claims becomes justified upon examining how Zionism is treated by Canada's elites in politics, media, and civil society. That is where it becomes problematic, is when our state is supporting this hate movement. Our state is endorsing it. It's being ingrained into our politics to support a hate group. In June 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney called for the establishment of a Zionist, if you will, Palestinian state. I covered that at the time. It was disgusting. And it didn't take him long to say that after he had won, because before there was some wording in some of the stuff that he was saying that was like, oh, maybe he'll be a bit better than Justin Trudeau on the subject. And then as soon as he got elected, it's like, oh, hell no, he ain't. He's worse. Which is about the same as urging German Jews to be ruled by a new Nazi government after the Holocaust. In March 2025, then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, "No one in Canada should ever be afraid to call themselves a Zionist. I am a Zionist." I also covered that when it happened. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of Canada's opposition party, said in an October 2024 statement, "We won't bow to the radical, woke, anti-Zionist Jew haters. We unapologetically stand with Israel through fire and water." The party's deputy leader had explicitly identified as a Zionist. You don't see this happening with any other nation. You don't, like, not even England. Not even where the monarchy is, the official head of state of Canada, would you see this level of support. Not even close. The federal government, 7 provinces and at least 20 towns and cities have adopted the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which, according to a federal handbook, classifies opposition to Zionism as anti-Semitism. Conflating the two is anti-Semitic. A Senate study released in December 2024, including among its recommendations that it is unacceptable in Canadian society to target Zionists or to deny them fair and equitable access to public spaces for the sole reason that they are Zionists, effectively calling for the treatment of Zionism, a political ideology, as a protected category. No, immutable characteristics can be protected categories, but a political ideology? You choose that. You choose that. Anyone who is still a Zionist is choosing to be on board with this genocide. It's a choice. It is absolutely a choice. They are glad it's happening. So this framing has also been pushed in lawsuits launched by Jewish students against universities and backed by major Jewish community organizations. Editor-in-chief of the National Post, the flagship publication of Canada's largest newspaper chain, it's also a right-wing rag, stated in a 2024 email to subscribers, "I feel privileged to be the editor-in-chief of the National Post right now, leading a paper that has been Zionist in its commentary since it was founded 25 years ago." There's also Canadaland, which used to be seen as a progressive news outlet until all of this started, and then it turns out that the person in charge of it is a raging fucking Zionist. He was recently on with one of the co-hosts of Bad Haspera. I might find the link and put it in. And they had a debate. It was interesting because the person knew, I keep on forgetting his name because I get it mixed up with Jeremy Apple. Jeremy Apple is a good person, but the person who's in charge of Canada Land is not, but has a similar name. Anyway, both of them knew each other. They grew up in Canada. They went to university together for a bit. They would play, games with each other after hours at school and whatnot. But one went in a Zionist direction. The other one went into an anti-Zionist direction. And so they had a bit of a talk, and it did at times feel like I was just pounding my head against the wall because the Zionist there was just, he's been so bad. He's been going on American shows to talk about how there's too many Muslims in Canada, and it's astonishing to see people who we used to see as like rational and sane be completely bloodthirsty, hateful monsters when it comes to this issue. Yeah, I might try to find that off screen and put the link into the SandBox for people who are interested in watching it. So the Globe and Mail, Canada's only other national newspaper, recently published an article from the editorial board arguing that Carney should have declared himself to be a Zionist in the speech he gave at a Toronto synagogue. A co-founder and former head of the organization dedicated to combating hate groups has described themselves as a Zionist and written that Zionism is essential to Jewish identity. Yeah, the anti-hate organization is led by a hateful bigot. So to sum it up, Zionism is not condemned by those in power, it's openly supported. Prominent Zionists feel no pressure to conceal their ideology in a way proponents of supremacy usually do. They are encouraged to share it and applauded when they do so. Zionists aren't seen as proponents of hate. They're treated as victimized group to be protected by limiting the freedoms of others. Jewish Canadians aren't expected to condemn Zionism or Israel in the way Muslims were for extremist forms of Islam. Non-Jewish Canadians are expected to support or at least not oppose Zionism because it is positioned as an essential part of Jewish identity. If another hate movement took over almost an entire community, it would be treated as a serious problem. Zionism is often defended precisely because it's so widespread among Jewish Canadians. The past 3 years have increasingly turned Canadians against Israel. This has resulted in those in power using increasingly heavy-handed attempts, many of them successful, to protect Zionism. Zionism is on the attack, not retreat. Zionists are coming for any and all of us willing to oppose their ideology. The fight continues. This was a brilliant article. I will toss it in here for people so that you can also like and share it. It's disturbing, very, very disturbing. Because I know in my Twitter feeds, I have anti-Zionist Jewish people. And so I do see that side. I see like Canadians against Canadian. There's the one group that I share a lot of. So I see a lot of Jewish groups and Jewish people who are against Zionism. This is bad. It's really bad. So it's something to be aware of. Super scary. Let me just scooch off screen for a second so I can see if I can find that YouTube video. I just have to go into my history, really. Although I usually have a bazillion videos in my history, especially when I've been working on the TYT essay. Let's see, where is it? But it wasn't too long. It was just a couple days ago that I watched it, so I should... Oh, there it is. Nope, that's not it. It was in that one. Not that. It was just a couple days ago, I swear. Although with my autism, I can't tell time when it comes to this. And so even though I think it could be a couple days ago, it could have been a couple weeks ago for all I know, or 2 years ago. Okay, it has to be around here somewhere, right? Right? Because it was a really good video. Really good video. Debate. No, no. How to search my history. Video popped up. It never works, though. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Hi there.
Don't play right away. It always does. Okay, here we go. It's this video here. Sitting down with Jesse Brown, and it's Daniel Mate. Oh, what's her name? Pops in from time to time. I know her. She's from Useful Idiots, I believe. She pops in from time to time. You hear her right here. Nope. Right there. So I'll put the link to this video in the SandBox. It's an interesting perspective because, like I said, these two knew each other when they were younger, back before all this has happened. And he's absolutely astonished how this guy could now be going on American news networks claiming that Canada is full of too many Muslims and has become a raging fucking Zionist, unlike anything else. Oh, his name is Jesse Brown. I keep on forgetting that. Because I get it mixed up with Jeremy Apple, even though very different names, but to me, they're I mix them up in my head. And I want to be careful because Jeremy Apple is a good guy. Okay, so I can close that. Let's get back to this. So speaking of one of the anti-Zionist Jewish people that is in my feed, Rabbi David here is putting into context why a lot of the hate statistics that we're seeing are skewed, the rise in anti-Semitism. And so, again, I will always say anti-Semitism is bad. There is no doubt about it. I'm against anti-Semitism. But it gets diluted and dismissed when all of these other things are lumped in with it. And so then it's hard to target the root causes or the actual anti-Semitic attacks when it's surrounded by all this other bullshit. And so Rabbi David says, I analyzed data from the Hamilton Police Hate Crimes Unit. In the 7 years of data that I received, there were hundreds of complaints about anti-Jewish hate incidents. All were property incidents, i.e. graffiti, except for exactly one incident per year, which was verbal. I personally had a Palestinian human rights lawn sign stolen from my front yard. I reported it to the police. They knew I'm a rabbi, so they reported it as an anti-Jewish hate incident. Do not accept reports of anti-Jewish incidents at face value without investigating further. So because he's Jewish, even though the act committed towards him would be more in lines with Islamophobia, it's listed as being anti-Semitic. Because he was quote tweeting this, very simple scan of the 2024 hate crimes report. Toronto shows Jewish people mostly had their property messed up or graffiti, which includes Free Palestine. Real violence happens to the most to 2S LGBTQ+, Black people, Muslims, South Asian, and worse, Indigenous people who are experiencing crisis of murder in this country and aren't even fucking mentioned on the report. One could assume it's because the police are often the racist killers, which is true. And there's been hate incidences that I've talked about. Muslims murdered. We're about to get into one of the stories. Like actual violence, not just, a spray paint of Free Palestine, but actual violence inflicted on people, people targeted, people killed, people assaulted that are Muslim, that are queer, that are Black. And as this person points out, yes, Indigenous peoples, the racism towards them is just so ingrained in our system. The majority of people shot by police, Indigenous and Black people. Our incarceration rates of Indigenous peoples disproportionately are disproportionate to other groups of people. But that's not mentioned. When cops are racist towards people, that's not mentioned. So here's one of the recent hate incidences towards Muslims. So today the NCCM, that's the National Council of Canadian Muslims, stood by Brother Moshin in Bowmanville in Clarington, Ontario, after he and other Muslim farmers in the area suffered weeks of harassment, death threats, and other forms of abuse from local white supremacists and Islamophobic groups. What started as a crude online conspiracy about Muslim farmers running slaughterhouses in the area soon evolved into online death threats, in-person harassment, and even the presence of drones flying over the properties of Muslim owners in the area. After prolonged investigations, authorities have long cleared these Muslim farmers of any wrongdoing, but that has not stopped the harassment. Now, an anti-Muslim rally is planned for tomorrow to further intimidate Brother Moshin and others in the area. Even a local Islamic school has been harassed by drones. Enough is enough. We will stand by those who have been badly shaken and affected by these utterly ridiculous and dangerous provocations. We are in touch with the authorities and call on all leaders to denounce this blatant campaign of Islamophobic harassment and intimidation. This might end up on par with Pizzagate. It's a conspiracy, and it happened so fast. It happened in the blink of an eye. It's a conspiracy about this family that people aren't believing. And the more they deny it, the more they believe it, to the point that they've had people show up to their property and threaten them. Their children. You know, they go there. Oh, where are the slaughterhouses in the basement of this field or something? Like, it's just ridiculous. I'll put this link in the SandBox for people who want to watch this video. But there's more on this that I want to get to. Oops. So this is from City News. Community leaders speak out as Muslim family face alleged harassment in Clarington.
Here at Mohsen Boya's rural Bowmanville home, it's a peaceful setting. But for the past 4 weeks, he says it's been far from that.
Do you fear for your life?
100%.
Mohsen says he feels that way after reading a flurry of comments shared through social media.
Dangerous comment. Burn their house, send them back, kill them, track them down.
He describes this area beside the family home as a small...
That's really on par with Free Palestine. Wait, was he a candidate for the Conservatives? Oh, I need to look into that for a second. Nothing to do, like, again, this is bad and horrible and shouldn't be happening. But it relates to something. So while we're watching this, I'll try to search for something. Motion.
Hobby farm. But it's become the center of attention. After complaints, several government entities sent inspectors.
I gave them the free access. Anywhere they feel like to go, they can, because the allegations has to be cleared.
He says zoning allows for small farm operations and for live animals to be sold for food processing off-site. However, Mohsen says drones have flown over the property and vehicles have been parked out front to keep watch. On Monday, he says a few people even trespassed. Mohsen's wife caught them on camera leaving.
It is kind of Islamic phobia, and
sorry, I just need to.
And by
I'll
the
let
way,
this
I'm
play
a Muslim.
before I finish my research.
I'm a target, one of the target.
Review of some online posts and comments shows a focus on halal food processing, along with allegations of broken laws. There are also claims of slaughtering animals, something Mohsen strongly denies. During our brief visit to the farm, there weren't visible signs of slaughter.
Now, we did reach out to Durham Regional Police to try to speak with someone on camera about this whole issue, but we were told no one was available. In a statement shared with City News, officers say they are aware of a protest taking place on Friday, as well as the allegations made against the property and its owners. Durham Regional Police do tell us that they will have a presence at that protest, and an investigation into the whole matter is still ongoing.
Clarington Mayor Adrian Foster says there is nothing illegal happening at the property.
Between ourselves, Health Department, as well as the province, there is nothing found on the property. That is open and shut, black and white.
Foster, as well as members of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, say they're worried for the family, calling a lot of the negative rhetoric harmful.
A limited number of people are causing strife. They are bullying. They are intimidating residents of Clarington.
No family should have to endure death threats, drones flying over their property, the prospect of an extremist demonstration outside of their property, a place where their children sleep, over completely false allegations.
Back at Mohsen's home, he says he's trying with his wife and children to figure out a way forward.
Honestly, they are fearful, and I do not know at this point what to do exactly.
Nick Westall, City News, Bowmanville.
See, this is an example of how my brain will be like, oh, here's a detail that I need to investigate further. So yes, he was a candidate, a federal candidate, in 2021. And the only reason why I bring this up, because I don't care if he's conservative or not, this shouldn't be happening to him. But the reason why I bring this up, and I was going to save it to the end of this little particular segment, is his MP and MPP have not said dick all about this. His MP, Jamel Giovanni. If you watch my channel, you've probably heard his name before. He is doing the Restore the North thing. It's kind of like a Turning Points Canada is what he's trying to do up here. He's been on racist screeds. He's been saying how, you know, it's Christians that are the most attacked people. I actually have some stuff about him later on, about Pride Month and whatnot, that we'll be getting to. But the fact that he was part of their party, he ran as a candidate, and they still can't be bothered to be like, hey, this isn't right. People need to stop this. Wow. You ran for the wrong party, buddy. Yeah. So here's another incident. So again, I wasn't bringing up that he was a conservative candidate to be like, oh, well. No, it's more about the fact that his own party couldn't be bothered to back him up. You see, that's the thing. If you're part of a vulnerable group and you go and run for the conservatives, you're dog chow. Like, it's just, they don't care about you. You're there as a token only to progress their agenda, and every other time they don't give a fuck about you. If you don't further their narrative, dunzo. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with, you know, he wasn't doing anything illegal with having his little duck farm. And down in the article here, it says, oh, I thought it said down here in the article, or maybe it was a different article that I was reading, that it's like ducks, pigeons, rabbits, you know. This is why I could never be a farmer. I'd instantly become a vegetarian. I wouldn't be able to work around animals that I do plan on eating. That's just, it's a hard no. I'm all for eating meat, but I couldn't do that. But yeah, he wasn't doing a slaughterhouse. And if you're against factory farming and slaughterhouses, then be against factory farming and slaughterhouses. There's tons of them in Ontario. I'm against factory farming and slaughterhouses, and if I had the money to, you know, go back to a diet that I had where it was no factory farmed or processed meat, I would do that. And one of the meats that I would eat is halal meat, because they treat their animals with respect. And there is a pizza not too far from me that offered to put halal meat on the pizza upon request. So another hate incident that happened recently, and again, the NCCM is calling this out, saying, we are extremely disturbed to learn of an incident in Thunder Bay, Ontario, where a man of Palestinian descent was physically assaulted while walking to the park on Canada Day with his toddler, his infant, his wife, and his 63-year-old mother, the latter who were visibly Muslim. The latter two who are visibly Muslim. The attacker yelled, fuck Muslims, and other obscenities while first approaching the wife and mother. But again, you know, a lot of these Zionists, you have genocide bad. Ooh, that's scary. That's a hate crime. I'm saving it for Wednesday on this space. There was the former actress from like Blossom or something who had that really dumb remark about like, I was so afraid. I saw somebody with a pro-Palestinian t-shirt approach me. Oh, my world will never be the same. And meanwhile, Muslims who have no power, you know, they don't have the wealth, they don't have the celebrity behind them to help keep them safer. Just random random people, random Muslims walking down the street will get attacked with this hateful rhetoric, and some of them physically attack. Well, yeah, in this case. So the attacker yelled, "Fuck Muslims," and other obscenities while first approaching the wife and mother. When calmly asked to leave the woman alone, the attacker allegedly beat the male victim and caused serious injuries. Police were on scene. "We are reaching out to all parties. Violent Islamophobia is rising at an alarming rate across Canada. We cannot accept this as the new normal. We urge all leaders to stand up now and end Islamophobia and take real action." So when it comes to, monitoring hate crimes and stuff like that, there should be a definite distinction between, physical violence or, verbal threats versus somebody spray painted "Free Palestine" on the sidewalk in front of a building. Or a Jewish man had his Palestinian sign taken from his front lawn. It's disturbing. But, where are the politicians? We need to play that game. If this was a Jewish person who was attacked this way, you'd have politicians across the country calling this out and saying how horrific this is and how this must end. But because he was Muslim, this is the only way I heard about it. And here's another incident. And to me, this is also a hate crime. I saw some videos on it, but it took a while for people to correct it. Centennial Collegiate, not college. The first tweets going around about this were saying Centennial College. No, it's collegiate, which means high school, which means this is probably a child that this happened to. So NCCM is saying, and again, to me, as far as I'm concerned, this is a hate crime because it does involve actual, physical contact. It has been extremely disturbing to witness the latest incident at Saskatoon Centennial Collegiate, where a young graduate recently appeared to have her Palestinian keffiyeh scarf ripped off by a staff member during her graduation ceremony. We have seen so much anti-Palestinian racism in recent years, particularly on campuses and inside graduation ceremonies such as these, where any reference to Palestinian culture or identity is conflated with ideas of terrorism and violence. This is a hallmark of anti-Palestinian racism and must to address be held accountable throughout all institutions in Canada. We are reaching out to all parties involved in this disgraceful incident. We will have more to say as the situation evolves. And this is the video here. Any right-winger would say, if that happened to them, that it was assault. So you can see she's proud. She's putting on her keffiyeh there. That probably damaged it because it was latched together. She's not allowed to be proud of her heritage during her high school graduation. Absolutely disgusting. On the flip side, there are people, again, pushing back, people who are supporting Palestinians and what's, calling out what's happening in Gaza and stuff. So here's another graduation ceremony in Edinburgh. Graduates walk out on first graduation ceremony of 2026 to protest against the university's financial ties with the Israeli occupation. This is becoming more and more difficult to do, especially in the UK, because they are criminalizing this type of protest, as we're about to get into. Is there volume to this? Well, I might have those out of... Okay, no, I want to go to this next. And part of the reason why it's so dangerous in the UK right now is Zachary Foster here is just saying, did you know that if you were a British journalist in 1945 and tried to interview a Holocaust survivor, you could have faced 14 years in prison for the crime of interviewing a genocide survivor? Just kidding. That's the policy today for the genocide survivors of Gaza. So Sarah Understammer, any journalist who works with a source from Gaza or even approaches them for information could face 14 years in prison. So there's people who just say, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action, that are being treated like terrorists, being arrested. It's getting worse and worse and worse there with this. And so this is from Zeteo UK. Zeteo just expanded there. Hey, Medi, call me about Canada. But yeah, it's absolutely brutal what's happening there. Like, I know Owen Jones does a ton of videos about this, and he often has on guests and stuff like this. This could jeopardize his career. If he were to bring on, as he has in the past, you know, people from Gaza, people who can speak about it, experts and whatnot. Like, would this apply to doctors who have been there, who maybe want to speak out about it? I'm not going to read this article because, you know, I need to pick and choose with my voice the way it is, but I will toss it into SandBox. Everyone, especially if you're a pond jumper, go and check out Zeteo UK or Zetato. Zetato? Zetato? Zetato. Zeteo? Zetao. And support them. It's worth reading this. But, you know, anyone does. They have one of the lawyers for the Filton 5 is being charged because he simply just reminded the jury they have the option of saying, okay, we're not going to vote guilty because of conscience type thing. You know, and again, thousands of people have been arrested for peacefully sitting down with a placard saying, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action. And saying that now can make you a terrorist in the UK. So also, people who are protesting in the UK, more to be aware of. Warning, as of Monday, wearing a mask at protests is a criminal offense in England and Wales. This is now the law. On what this means for clinically vulnerable people. The Crime and Policing Act of 2026 came into force June 29th. Police can designate an area no mask zone for up to 24 hours around a protest. Where anything that conceals your identity, a protective respirator included, and you have committed an offense. What has changed? Before, wearing a mask was an offense. You only broke the law if the officer told you to remove it and you refused. Now the wearing itself is the offense. Masking is a crime. But there's a health exemption, surely? No. There's a health defense, and that's really not the same. An exemption means you are protected. A defense means you have already committed the offense, and you will have to justify yourself. In practice, a clinically vulnerable person masking to protect themselves can be stopped and told to unmask and potentially arrest first if they only later gets to explain why. We shouldn't have to go to court to protect our health. And so the burden falls on you. Under S157, if you have to prove your reason was health, strikingly, the Act's defense for letting off flares and for protesting outside politicians' homes are drafted more leniently than one for a sixth person in a mask. To be fair, this isn't a blanket ban. It applies only to police designated zones for up to 24 hours in England and Wales. But that's no use if you're clinically vulnerable in a zone declared around a protest and you have every right to join. So potentially, even if you're not part of that protest and you have to wear a mask for health reasons, you could get charged. This law is telling clinically vulnerable people take part, but you must choose if you want to simply risk your health or risk arrest and subsequently risk your health, which is no choice at all. If you are clinically vulnerable or you just believe protests should be safe for everyone, follow us. Share this thread. And please consider writing your MP and using our template email. Okay, let me just go to this screen before I do this. Make sure that no more sensitive information comes up. There. Here's the template email if you're in the UK. Now, I don't know for sure, but when these anti-mask laws come into effect, they say you're not allowed to wear anything to conceal your face. And that thread was about people who needed a mask for health reasons. But also people do want a mask so that they're not targeted later on by Zionists and identified and gone after and all this sort of stuff. Now, I don't know, so don't do this unless you've looked into it yourself and feel comfortable. But what I would suggest to protesters, and to do this en masse, face makeup, like a zebra. And I'm not joking about the zebra. Because if you're all wearing face makeup like a zebra, you can't be identified. You can't be singled out. And the zebra, black and white, same as Kafia. Because if you wear clown makeup and stuff like that, you can still be identified. Or a solid dark color, but that could be problematic for certain reasons, because dark colors will even hide the shadowing of your face to make it harder to define features. So I would suggest everyone use face paint like a zebra. If you look into it yourself and identify that it's not the same as wearing a mask. Because would it be different? I think that should be a thing. If that loophole exists, I think it should be exploited. I do not know if that loophole exists, but any of the pond jumpers in here, feel free to look into it. If that loophole exists, I encourage people to do it. If we get any pond jumpers in here tonight, let me know and I will reiterate this. Still got a bit more to go. But here we have from Defend Our Juries, Resilient. Lush launches a new brand, new product. Lush launches a brand new product in support of Defend Our Juries. From today, you can help clean up corporate corruption and defend democracy by just having a relaxing lemon-scented bath. I hate that these look so edible. 75% of retail prices go to Defend Our Juries. It looks like a nice ice cream or like a chocolate bomb or something. I wish they wouldn't make these bath bombs look edible. So again, if you're in the UK, feel free to buy one of these, and 75% of retail price goes to Defend Our Juries. Okay, so I can save those. So I'm going to get into some more international news protest-wise, but I think I can take a scooch of a break because it is kind of a different topic, and I can close a bunch of these tabs. And I can get caught up in the SandBox before moving on. Damn it! I didn't mean to close that tab. History! Ah, history! Recently closed tabs. This one? Oh, okay, I didn't close the wrong tab. There we go. So I can close that. There we go. Okay. So, go and check the SandBox. Huh? This thing right here. This. Yeah, I'm going to look this way to check the sandbox. I'm sorry, this is still a novelty to me, and I have to kind of be verbally out loud with it so I can get into the routine, because I'm still so used to be like, let's check the sandbox. It's not there. It's over there. I did this for your benefit, but it's going to fuck me over. Okay. And as always, try to remember to switch the sandbox to live chat from top chat. You'll get to see more of what's happening. And if I get raided by anyone, please let me know by highlighting my name so I can give them proper credit, because it doesn't show up on my screen anymore, really. Let's see what people are saying. I did say hi. Yeah, I did say hi to Philip Blair. And that situation with the doctor is absolutely horrific. Just, it's, yeah. And Philip also saying exactly, we can see all the genocide. Usually genocides are hidden in the shadows. Perpetrators doing everything they can to hide it. Yeah, and this is right out there. Like, what investigation do you need? Just sit down in front of TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You get all the evidence you need. More than enough evidence. Her meteorologist, their framing of all of this annoys the hell out of me, talking about the museum exhibit. Philip, when they teach about the Armenian genocide in Turkey, do they tell both sides? Let's see. Germ, well, if there's two sides are Palestine and Israel, then one side is murdering, the other side with impunity. Yeah. Philip Blair, do people attack French Canadians when they learn about Algeria? My guess would be no. That would imply that they get taught about Algeria. Canada isn't so great on teaching about global history or our history or colonialism when it comes down to it. Let's see. George is pretty based. Who's George? Did I miss something? Was there a George? Hermeteorologist, why are you just throwing out a random name saying George is pretty based? Hello, Real John Litham. Welcome to the Sandbox. Philip Blair, it's definitely not Miller time. Yep. In True Democratic North, were you in earlier? Maybe, maybe not. Well, welcome to the Sandbox, if I have not yet said it to you today. Yes, Philip Blair. In Canada, part of our hate crime laws is you're not allowed to, promote the genocide, or you're saying that under 319 of the Criminal Code, communication statements outside of private conversation that willfully promote, condoning, denying, or downplaying the Holocaust is a punishable offense. Yeah. This country is very picky and choosy over which genocides you're allowed to acknowledge or deny. And also, you're not allowed to promote a genocide in speech, but the country can send weapons to help one. Oh. Let's see. So that's the Maple article. I'm guessing, Germ, that's what you're saying holy fuck to? Philip, I'm sympathetic with people who were anti-war, but I'm not sympathetic with people who were pro-Nazi. Yeah, I'm not exactly a fan of people who are pro-Nazi. Germ, were those campaign signs on the opening to the duck house? Yeah, I saw the video earlier, or watched it. Maybe I wasn't, sometimes I just hear it in the background, but then when I saw that, that's when I zoomed in to be like, oh, he was a conservative candidate. Yeah, his MP, who is conservative, Jamel Javani, hasn't said anything to him. It's wow. Wow. Germ, leopards, faces, etc. Yeah. Halal and culture have a lot in common, so incitement against halal can easily result in to attacks on Jewish people. Yeah, back when I was doing the no factory farmed or processed meat, halal and kosher meat, I was fine with eating. Grand Theft Autobot, Miriam Bellick, yeah, the former actor turned Zionist, scaredy cat. Yeah, I'll be covering that on Wednesday when I'm on this space. The Wild West, welcome to the SandBox, saying she gives credibility to weirdos on her podcast like the psychic autism people. Okay. Uh, well, some people are autistic are really good at reading micro expressions to the point where they almost seem psychic. Hello, Susie Ann Jones. Welcome to the SandBox. Okay, that's the article about the 14 years. Okay. The Wild West going to have to fact check that halal thing. Halal is worse than non-halal for the animals. But when I think of factory farms, I think of like chickens that are strung up by their feet and not necessarily dead when they go through the slaughter line and be automatically deplucked and things of that sort. It's brutal. Whereas from what I've heard with halal, it sounds brutal, but they're just basically slitting the throat. There's no not brutal way to kill something for consumption, really. Let's see. Grand Theft Autobot reminds me of a cartoon I saw once that actually made me laugh. They're doing this potato bit, and one of them yells, "Who says potato?" And the third character comes in, sports a bag of chips. I don't get it. I don't get it. Probably has to be something I hear. Hello, Bobby. Welcome to the SandBox. The Wild West, for it to be halal, they have to slit the throat and drain the animal of blood. They can't stun the animal before. It takes a while to die from blood draining, and that's painful. Okay. So I did want to get into a little bit more of international news around the topic of like protesting and stuff of that sort. And well, apparently it was July 4th over the weekend. That's a big day for the Americans. I saw somebody else cover the speech Donald Trump gave. It must be so embarrassing to be American right now. Like, just his rambling speech talking about how bad communism is and all this sort of stuff. It's just like, what do you even do with that? What do you even do with that? And other people have been covering, you know, the American fair and things, part of the stage falling down during a performance, and somebody with one of those fan propellant parachute things that face planted into a canopy, tent canopy and stuff like that. And it's just, yeah. But here's some American international news, again, just along the lines of protesting and standing up to what they know is wrong, which should be a thing. Let's go here. So this person says, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. This man is the real MVP and a true hero. This is Air Force Major Jason Watson's speech that resulted in his arrest on July 1st, 2026. Happy Canada Day. I quote, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just a nobody. What matters for me far more than who I am is what I have to say and the price that I'm willing to pay. This man knew the trouble he was getting into by standing there in his military uniform and was willing to pay the price by sacrificing his entire military career so others can understand the dire situation of the current state of this country. I can only aspire to obtain this type of bravery and courage. I'll toss this into the SandBox. We're going to be watching a clip from it. But if you want to see the whole thing, here you go. If you're on the hostile parts sauna. If not, I'm pretty sure you can probably find it on YouTube somewhere as well. But we'll be watching a clip of it here that Sarah put out. And she says, I don't believe people outside the military understand how significant this is. He is willing to lose his entire future over this. That's bravery like we haven't seen in a long time. And the thing is that people are like, oh, this is political. It's not. It's not. Like, the things that a lot of people on the left are fighting for are just basic human rights. It's not political. It's things that everyone should want regardless of your political stripe. It's not about, you know, tax policy or, you know, all that sort of stuff. It really is. It should be universal, some of these principles, but apparently if you go woke because you care about other people, whew, yeah, then it's political. Me being queer is political by simply existing.
I, Jason Paul Watson, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. When the President of the United States orders military action against foreign countries, absent an emergency scenario where American interests are under imminent, dire threat, as was done with Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, that's an unconstitutional usurpation of Congress's authority and a violation of the War Powers Clause. These violations resulted in the deaths of 13 service members and the injuries of hundreds more. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
This is true. Our leaders need to be held accountable. Like, I know the president is, what is it? Something chief, whatever. But American soldiers are supposed to be serving the American Constitution. when they see a leader that is doing things that blatantly go against their constitution, what that country was founded on, what so many people, part of their organization that has died in the past, protecting, and you see somebody coming up the ranks and being president and destroying that legacy, you need to speak out. People need to start putting things on the line. You know, we can't just passively be sitting by and clicking on things. People need to be out there and actually risking things. Yes, real John Lytham, Commander-in-Chief. It's not enough these days to simply, you know, just say, I'm pro-Palestinian. What are you going to do about it? Signing petitions, yep, that's good. But, you know, you look at all the people in the UK who are getting arrested for simply holding a sign saying, you know, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action. You gotta be willing to risk that. Or doing other things. Speaking out in other ways. The time of doing nothing has long passed. So more people need to be doing this. More people need to be risking their careers, because it's talking about your soul. Who do you want to be as an individual? Who do you want to be as a person?
When the President of the United States grants an unelected mega donor sweeping authority to shut down large swaths of our federal government, along with unrestricted access to our government databases, that's an unconstitutional circumvention of Congress's advise and consent authority under the Appointments Clause and Congress's power of the purse under the Appropriations Clause. These violations exposed every American's personal sensitive data to leaks and exploitation, illegally terminated tens of thousands of federal civil servants, and crippled support to Americans for medical care and disaster preparedness, and by far most tragically, resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of the world's most impoverished people with inhumanely abrupt cessation of U.S. aid. When the President of the United States directs the Department of Homeland Security to deny hundreds of people any due process before illegally detaining them and sending them to a foreign prison notorious for human rights abuses, that's a violation of our Fifth and Eighth Amendment rights. Most people sent to CCOT never committed any violent crimes in their entire lives, but are being defamed as violent criminals to this day as a pretext for the torture they suffered in El Salvador, paid for with U.S. taxpayer dollars. When the President of the United States sponsors violence on the American people, engaged in their constitutional right to peacefully assemble and protest, that's a violation of our First Amendment rights. Pastors praying for DHS agents violently attacked without provocation. A legal observer losing an eye after being shot with a non-lethal by an ICE agent. A woman attempting to follow chaotic and contradictory DHS agent instructions fatally gunned down. A subdued man that posed no threat fatally shot after having his unbrandished firearm removed, with statements by high-ranking cabinet members also violating our Second Amendment rights. For this, the President and Vice President must be impeached, convicted, and removed.
I'll say it again. Hear, hear. I believe in that too. Like it seems so weird because it seems like such common sense. Yet we're often made to feel like we're the villains in this when we're calling out things that are blatantly wrong, saying, you know what, that's wrong. And people would be like, oh, how dare you? It's like, what? I thought murder and slaughter and all that sort of stuff was bad. I thought we wanted to go out in the world and help others and give them aid. And how dare you, woke moralist? Like, it's just, I don't get it. It's just like, but here is the America that this person is fighting against. Like, this is where it's going. And this is where this guy, his name, Jason Watson, is fighting against. He's fighting against this. And so Mehdi Hassan had quote tweeted this out saying maybe Republicans should spend more time condemning stuff like this and less time condemning the mayor of New York. And so Patriot Takes had tweeted out around 400 white nationalist Patriot Front members are marching in D.C. today with Confederate flags, etc. A streamer with the group described as a total Aryan victory. This is what that soldier is fighting against. This is what American soldiers went and fought against, died for in the past. Happening on their soil. Like, how can an American soldier stand there and watch this and not feel the need to defend their country from this? Although there's probably a fair number of soldiers, actual military, active military members in that, but you know, this is what America was fighting against. And this picture here, it's going to go down in history. So Philip Lewis tweeted this out. Members of the group Patriot Front ride the metro as commuter looks on during the 250th anniversary of the U.S. independence in Washington, D.C. And this is courtesy of Reuters. So these people can wear masks, apparently. Hide their faces. But if you're in the UK and need one for medical reasons during certain periods, you're not allowed to. Protesters aren't allowed to wear a mask, but these douche canoes can. But this is a very stark image. I feel for her. How I'd be terrified being there around all those people, terrified to say the wrong thing, look the wrong way. In the States, you do have politicians that are pushing back. Politicians that are standing up against the genocide enabling and all that sort of stuff. So first we have Rashida Tlaib saying, tomorrow I will force another vote to end U.S. participation in the Israeli apartheid regime's campaign of ethnic cleansing and territorial expansion in Lebanon. Over 4,250 people have been massacred. 12 children are killed or maimed every day as these U.S.-backed war crimes continue. Congress must vote to end U.S. support for these atrocities and force an end to Israel's invasion and illegal military occupation of Lebanese territories. So we do have people in Congress in the United States fighting back, including AOC. So this is from Dropsite News saying Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has introduced an amendment that could effectively halt all offensive and defensive U.S. military aid to Israel under current conditions as part of a package of 11 amendments to the FY 2027 National Defense Authorization Act. Now this was, June 29th. That was earlier. Okay, I'm sure Jank and Anna over at TYT are covering this. I'm sure they're all over it. If only, I don't know, there was more people in Congress who could vote for it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she quit her job, so she doesn't have any say in this anymore. But yeah, if only, I'm sure they're going to give her glowing reviews of this, that she's actually doing something to push back against the atrocities the United States is committing. I'm sure they're right on it. They're on it. Sorry. For people who have no idea what I'm talking about, yeah, it is what it is. I gotta vent sometimes. The proposal would require all U.S. defense articles and services to be used in accordance with international law and consistent with Section 620I of the Foreign Assistance Act, prohibit transfer of countries that restrict U.S. support humanitarian aid unless the president certifies the recipient is complying with those requirements and Congress separately authorizes the transfer. Its practical force lies in stripping the president's discretion to look past existing laws. Section 62, I guess it's maybe a 1 or a capital L, No, lowercase L, capital I, maybe. I don't. It's weird in this font. Anyway, already bars aid to government blocked by U.S. humanitarian assistance, but administrations have repeatedly declined to determine that Israel is in violation despite restrictions on aid entering Gaza. Under the amendment, the president would have would have to affirmatively make that determination, and Congress would have to specifically authorize the transfer through legislation before covering military aid could proceed. And there's a bit more on it. And a video here saying that AOC tells Dropsite News she will vote for Representative Thomas Massey's amendment to the FY 2027 State Department appropriations bill that would prohibit funds under the bill from being spent on Israel and eliminate the $3.3 billion foreign military financing. Again, so sure TYT is all over this. Anyway. Main shot. Okay, so I can close this. I need to leave that open because I need to investigate something that he said in that. Okay, so go and check the sandbox and then we'll move on to the next docket. It's about federal politics. It's also another fairly long docket, and then the last two dockets are fairly short. So hopefully I won't be here for 5 hours. Let's see. I saw Bobby saying hi. Philip Blair, I'm moving in a vegan direction. I only eat eggs from family members or neighbors with chickens who wander freely. Yeah, like the farm that guy had, that's to me a more ideal way, like free range type chickens and ducks and stuff like that. Ones that actually have like a decent quality of life. That's ideally what I want to see. Big Jerry, send all the billionaires, oligarchs, robber barons, fascists, maggots, and rightoids to Mars forever. That would be an interesting social experiment. See how well that lasts. Oh, just have a colony of right-wingers. Wow. Yeah. It is a one-way trip, at least for the first bunch of people going. Yeah, it's so bad. Let's just deport them from the planet. The Grand Theft Autobot. Remember when they said they won't be forced to wear masks during the pandemic? Yeah, Pepper Ridge Farm remembers. I think that's supposed to be said a certain way. Rusty, the deplorables always try to appropriate nationalism and religion. Okay. Well, let's get moving along. Let's see. I don't know what does my screen say when it comes to that. Might be a bit of a low turnout today. It's a nice weekend here anyway. Chat, live chat. Let's see. It's quality though that I care about. I have a quality sandbox. One of these days, I'll have like hundreds of people watching me. Yeah. One of these days, this YouTube channel will probably help me not freak out every month. Come bill paying time. I might have to get a part-time job. Oh, which I'm not very compatible at doing. With working with people, ugh, never ends well. And I might have to get one, doesn't mean I'll be able to. Because that would require somebody hiring me, which is the difficult part when it comes to this sort of thing. Anyway, let's get back on to the news. Moving to federal and Mark Carney. I'm getting more and more upset with him. More and more angry. And the more people that I bump into that are like, I think he's still doing a great job, it's getting harder to resist the urge to punch them in the face. I won't. Again, I'm anti-violence. I'm very anti-violence. But the urge is there to just kind of want to slap them silly because they're obviously not paying attention. Because if you're paying attention, you'd realize that Mark Carney is just a blatant conservative. Like, more conservative than any conservative we've had in like my lifetime. Conservative. What he is doing to this country, what he's doing to the longevity of people, what our economy, everything, he is destroying this country. Like, he's just fucking destroying it. It's hard to wrap my head around how bad this is. And, you know, when he first got elected, I was willing to cut him some slack. He was saying some good things, things that I was hopeful for, things that made it seem like he would lean towards, go for public pressure and stuff of that sort. But it was all just a con game. This is why I have a hard time getting excited about politicians. I need to see them in action. So Zoran, he's a good example of the good that they can do. So he was promising lots of great things. Okay, great. Now let's see him actually attempt it and get some of that through. And he has already, and it's been such a short time. But, like as much as I like what Avi is saying, there isn't a single NDP premier I think is doing a good job or is true to NDP values completely. So as much as I like what he's saying, I'd have to see it in practice before I actually like him. And that's why it's like, okay, maybe there's a chance. Well, that chance got blown out of the water with Mark Carney. Like, just completely gone shortly after he got into power. And he told us where he was going. Just a complete 180 from a lot of the rhetoric that he was running his platform on. Nobody voted for the shit he's doing. Conservatives voted for the shit he's doing. They were just hoping Pierre Poilievre would do this. But he's doing what Pierre would have done and more because nobody's holding him to account. His own party isn't. The conservatives aren't. So nobody's holding him to account, so he's getting away with more. And yeah, Pierre Poilievre wouldn't have been able to charm the world. This guy could. He did. So many people after his Davos speech, oh, he said all the right things. I don't give a fuck what a politician says. I care about what they do. And what he's doing is fucking this country hard. And so Rachel here is saying, in case you're a bit struck and overwhelmed by how many announcements Carney has been making, here's him talking about something he's learned from Trump. Yeah, he's not anti-Trump. He's a better-mannered Trump.
Have you
and probably less bigoted.
learned anything from President Trump?
Have I learned? I've learned lots of things from President Trump. You always learn things from people. I've learned that the value. I don't fully subscribe to this, but I see the effectiveness. The value of the term they would use is flooding the zone, of doing multiple things at the same time, and the effectiveness that can have.
How is it effective? What is it effective for? Mark? Why would you employ this tactic? What's the goal? Mark? What you doing with it? Because we see how Trump floods the zone and is to distract and all that sort of bullshit. And so if you're just going verbatim, the way that Trump does it, then that's an admittance that you're trying to distract the Canadian public from the horrible shit you're doing. And he absolutely is. This is one of the stupid ass announcements. So the Serf's quote tweeting this out, just saying, just as Spain, Netherlands, and Ireland, Iceland, and Slovenia are boycotting the competition over Israel's genocide, Canada swoops in to be like, we don't care. Dancing, yes. Because here we have Mark Carney. The Eurovision Song Contest just got a lot tougher because next year, Canada is in. Uh-huh. That's right. Everything here is solved. Now, technically speaking, I'm not necessarily against this. I also don't care. What I care about is what does Mark Carney do to improve the quality of our lived experience? You know, how does my affordability issue become better with the policies and stuff that he's doing? This is just, putting bows and garland on something. This doesn't actually functionally do anything to improve people's lives. It's like the whole lipstick on a pig thing. But also, as the serfs were pointing out, to do it now is in real poor taste. So this is from CBC News. Canada will enter the 2027 Eurovision Song Contest. Canada's among largest ticket buyers outside of Europe. So today is the day fans over the top talent show and campy musical performance has been waiting for. Canada is entering the song contest. The announcement was made by CBC Radio Canada and European Broadcasting Union less than a week after confirming CBC had become a full member of the EBU. On this Canada Day, we celebrate with Canadians across the country, around the world, the richness and diversity of Canadian culture. We're also excited to confirm that we're bringing the world's largest live music event to Canadians, said Marie-Philippe Bouchard, the president and CEO of CBC Radio Canada, in a news release. Next year, Bulgaria will host the 71st edition of the event, which is seen as a springboard for songwriters, singers, and musicians. And then just stuff about how much Canada has loved it before, so on and so forth. But let's scooch down here. Right down here at the very bottom of the article. Huh. Funny they put it right at the bottom. Earlier this year, 5 countries, Spain, Ireland, and Netherlands, Iceland, and Slovenia, boycotted the contest to protest Israel's continued participation in the event while the war in Gaza continued. A challenge to kick Israel out was rejected by the European broadcasters, but the country's future participation is expected to remain controversial. And I'm sure Canada will be in full support of keeping Israel in the competition. Just given everything else this country is doing. It's disgusting. Because it's not like everything in Canada has been saved. No, far from it. So, another thing being distracted from is this. Some of the arguments I get into people about Mark Carney is like, oh, well, he stood up to Trump. He's so good against Trump. He's done this and that. No, spell out exactly what he has done to put Trump in his place. And they're like, oh, well, he has to play this game. Has Claudia Sheinbaum played the same game? Has she conceded to him time and time again? Has she gone out of her way? Has she preemptively given him things like, cutting the capital, not the capital gains tax. That was one that he did cut. The one that for digital companies to go across the border. All these things, all the things that the Americans wanted, that Donald Trump wanted, that he just preemptively did. Yeah. Huh. Claudia hasn't done that. I just want some of these Carney sycophants to be like, what has he done against Donald Trump that has actually worked? Because that's why you voted him in. It wasn't just be like, oh, well, he's dealing with a difficult position. No, you voted him in to deal with that difficult position. And what has he done? Nothing. except give Trump concession after concession. So, Surf saying, delivered nothing he promised, but he did transfer Canada into a militaristic AI surveillance petrostate. So here we have Dr. Liz and Lewis saying, the United States' decision to renew CUSMA is yet another sign that the Liberals are failing to deliver the certainty Canadian workers and businesses need. Yeah, so the United States decided not to renew this trade agreement. Canadians were promised results. Instead, after months of missed deadlines and lofty rhetoric, there's still no deal and no clear path forward. The 2.6 million Canadians whose livelihoods depend on the trade deserve a government with a serious plan to defend Canadian jobs, strengthen our economy, and stand up for our industries. Canadians need results, not excuses. And this is the article here. U.S. declines CUSMA renewal, cites deal's shortcomings. Was I actually going to play this? No. So and this is from CTV News, the trilateral trade deal between Canada and the United States and Mexico, known as CUSMA, will enter an annual review process as U.S. officials opt not to extend that agreement. The United States did not agree to renew CUSMA in its current form, wrote the U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer in a statement CTV News. As a result, CUSMA is not renewed. The United States will continue to engage with Mexico and Canada to address the agreement's shortcomings and our trade deficits with these countries, Greer added. However, the agreement remains in force pending resolution of these issues or until the agreement's termination. So, I'm not going to read this whole article. It is actually quite long. I'll toss it in SandBox. But usually at the bottom, they put a little something that you should be read. So let's see. Speaking during a fireside chat at the Hudson Institute, a Washington, D.C. based think tank, in April, Greer compared certain provisions with CUSMA to long-bearing pillars, which currently function well within agreement, and that the United States doesn't want to change or get rid of. There are certainly things in there that are valuable, but we do not have some kind of protocol or something with Mexico and one with Canada separately, I think, to deal with issues specific to those countries, Greer said at the time. Amid talks around the future of CUSMA, Canada and the U.S. remain in trade war that's nearly at 18th month mark after Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on Canadian imports last February. While the vast majority of Canadian goods are exempt from the levies because they're covered under CUSMA, a slate of sectorial tariffs remain in place. So, a lot of the companies and industries that are currently protected will no longer be protected. And Trump will be able to do whatever the fuck he wants, as he usually does. I've tossed the link to this article into the SandBox because it is a longer article and people can check it out if they wish. But on to probably one of the worst things that he's going to be about. Because, yeah, the economy, cost of living, all of that sort of stuff is important. No doubt about it. We're talking about the fucking planet's survival here. And Carney has said, fuck that. Industry first. Profits first. I don't know. I think I saw it on YouTube or something. There was a series called Dinosaurs. It was a sitcom with puppets. And apparently it has one of the most devastating series finales. And you can watch it. And it was this businessman dinosaur talking about all the money he was going to make because of the destruction he wrought on the planet because people would have to get heaters for their homes during the Ice Age. They're literally doing the reverse of this right now, where they're like, we're destroying the planet. Yeah, we're fucking it over completely. But you just buy an air conditioner. This is the dinosaur sitcom in reverse. And I did notice that pop-up. Hello, pond jumpers. Welcome from No Justice. It's really nice to see you out. just covered some UK news, so you can always go back in the stream and see that. I'm just starting now onto federal news, talking about how Mark Carney is just the worst, like the worst. And he's fucking over the planet, like really hard. He is just he is hammering in that fuck. Like, it's just like, wow. So I'm just getting into that right now. But yeah, just covered some international news about a little museum exhibit that's happening here that's causing Zionists to lose their shit. And yeah, so please check that out. Like, subscribe. Everyone else, go check out No Justice. She does lots of great work. Anyway, on to Mark Carney saying this about his own fucking party. It's like, oh yeah, no, I don't care what Justin Trudeau did. This is the Carney government. We ain't the red kind of liberals that you know. So Scott Robertson, who tweets out lots of clips and stuff, I don't need to read this quote because it's said in here.
I promised you I wouldn't sugarcoat tough messages. The climate plan we inherited from the previous government was well-intentioned and well-suited for the times in which it was designed.
That was like a fucking year ago, year and a half ago. You're talking about the Justin Trudeau government. So it's just the Justin Trudeau government is like, yeah, all of the climate stuff that he was doing, which wasn't great to begin with, they didn't go far enough because, industry.
The climate crisis is still with us, and our commitment to fighting it is absolute. The certainties of the world of 2015 are long gone. Our neighborhood hasn't been this hostile since when Canada was founded. The world hasn't been this unstable geopolitically since the end.
Yeah, you see, politics are really bad around the world, so we can't care about the environment anymore because that interferes with, our progress in industry and capitalism and all that sort of stuff. And so, fuck the planet. Because really, all of us will be dead in 100 years when the real crisis unfolds.
End of the Second World War. We must establish stability amidst this chaos. The energy transition will be a source of great stability in the long run, but while it's underway, it can equally be a source of disruption. No country is better positioned.
Caring about the environment could be disruptive to industry. Yeah. Oof, priorities.
To thrive in both eras than Canada. And we need not allow the transition from one era to another to pull us apart.
The transition to the next era of climate change, that's going to be pulling people apart. That's going to be a rough transition. The UK has just experienced recently. We had a heat wave, not as bad as the UK recently here. Storms abound across the country. Yeah, no. We're in a rough transition that we're feeling, we're living. And do you know what is really bad for the economy? Climate change. Yeah. Do you know what destroys like businesses and homes and all that? Climate change. Yeah. Climate change will cost so much that the amount of money you're getting from these piddly little business will look like fucking pennies, and we don't even have pennies anymore.
The goal remains the same, but as times have changed, we must change our plan to get there. We can't afford to restrain the growth of an important part of our energy mix, oil and gas, to meet a short-term goal.
Climate change is not a fucking short-term goal. The profits from oil and gas is a short-term goal. I'm just like, where are the liberals? Where are all the Carney fans? He did this again. He just admitted that he understands flooding the zone. And part of flooding the zone is sending out statements like this right before a holiday, amongst other things.
I want to be clear on this point. The changes we have made will mean that our emissions will be higher in the next few years than they were projected to be under the previous government's plan.
And we weren't even meeting targets then.
But in my judgment, that plan was not sustainable over the long term.
Climate change is not sustainable to our lives. Not some fucking industry profit. To our lives. Climate change is not
It would have been too expensive for Canadians. Canadians
just said, do you know what's going to be really expensive for Canadians? The CC. Maybe I should just start referring it to CC as right now because, you know, YouTube doesn't like it when you say climate change. But, yeah. That's going to be too expensive. So the thing is that you have to stop all oil pipelines right now. I don't care what kind of fucking hit that gets to the economy, because then what you can do, especially in a country as wealthy as Canada, is you can start more socialist type programs. You know, socialism, where you give like a universal basic income and help people, you know, cover the cost of living in between the transitions to renewable energies. Not another single fucking pipeline should be built. Just a hard no. Alberta, go fuck yourselves. I know it's part of their culture there, like guns are culture in the United States. But you know what? Grow the fuck up. This is the planet we're talking about. It's like, oh, but you know, oil is part of my identity. Well, you're not going to have a fucking identity and all your kids will die. So, no, Grow up. This society needs to grow the fuck up.
who are already struggling with affordability. It would have let down our partners.
And the droughts that cause farms to be destroyed, and the floods that will also cause farms to be destroyed, and all that sort of stuff, and all the food crises going around the world, that's also going to increase the cost of groceries.
Who need new sources of energy, and it would do so right at the time when we need them to help us become more independent of the United States. And it would have been too divisive for our country. In the current environment, the old plan was an
Daddy Trump wouldn't have liked it, is what he's saying there.
Open opportunity for those people who wish to pull Canada apart, both at home and from abroad.
So Rachel Gilmore, equally pissed off, quote tweeting this. And so let's go back a few of her. She quote tweeted herself a few times here. So let's go back a few. Just to point out what she was saying. So if you want to rage bait yourself, watch this. It's a lot of fear-mongering bullshit, to say the least. Effectively, we're doing a shock doctrine and we're abandoning our climate targets. Happy Canada Day, everyone. And so that's a link to the full speech that Mark Carney gave on YouTube. It's like 15 minutes long. And so she also mentions, not a surprise he published this, is a carefully crafted video where no reporters can push back on his claims the day before a national holiday. We see you, Carney. And she's just pointing out part of the clip that we just saw. This is what the entire video is intended to couch. It's the only part that matters. We can't afford to restrain the growth of an important part of our energy mix, oil and gas, to meet a short-term goal, Carney says. Our emissions will be higher in the next few years. Yes. Lowering emissions, it's just a short-term goal, you know, once we get things back on track. So he says it would be too expensive to meet our climate targets, so who's saving money when we don't? The people whose houses burn down in forest fires, who lose homes to floodings. Perhaps we could have kept the capital gains rate increase for multimillionaires and billionaires instead of Carney scrapping it. Maybe then we could afford to save the climate. Does that just, yeah, that just goes to my feed. Yep. And so right after he announced we're abandoning our climate targets.
Speaking of which, before I introduce Jeremy finally, public service announcement, it is time for a hydration break. It's hot. If you're watching at home, it is hot there.
It's getting hot in here, so let's add more pipelines. I am getting so hot, I want to add a pipeline. That's kind of where the title of this video came from, that song, but I don't know if anybody picked up on it. It's getting hot in here, so let's make more pipelines. No? Anyone? No, I probably sang it really bad too. Anyway, yeah.
Speaking of,
all politicians need to go hell. So this is an MP in British Columbia. Today's cooperative prosperity partnership between Canada and British Columbia is a significant investment in our future. By accelerating major energy and trade infrastructure projects, we build a more resilient and independent economy, creating good-paying jobs and building the foundation for a long-term growth. Just as importantly, this partnership recognizes the economic growth and environmental stewardship must go hand in hand. With the commitments to protect our lands and waters, strengthen coastal ecosystems, and advance our new national carbon credit framework, together we're building a stronger, more sustainable Canada for generations to come. Unfortunately, those generations probably won't survive thanks to these douche canoes. And so Torrance here is just saying one of the most vocal opponents to the TMX pipeline a decade ago, cheerleading loudly for TMX2. The biggest indicator of the rottenness of a political system is how efficiently it separates people from the convictions, principles, and conscience. So somebody else just kind of pointing out that, we're in a loop here in Canada where we just keep on electing Stephen Harper, who was a conservative prime minister. Because here we have from Mark Carney again, Canada has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become a global energy superpower. Well, you see, if we switch to renewables, then it's like a renewable opportunity to be a global energy superpower. Because once we drain all the oil, that's it. It's not renewable. So we could become like a renewable opportunity. No, China has that, right? Because they actually did that. We didn't. No, China did. We absolutely could have here, but China did. We didn't. We're seizing it in partnership with Alberta, Indigenous peoples, and industry. We're building a stronger Canada for all. They're not. They put that in there to make them, to sanitize their message. They'll add Indigenous peoples into the language. They're not in partnership with Indigenous peoples on this. And yeah, the whole fucking conservative slogans of like stronger Canada and all that sort of bullshit, that's very much conservative. And this douche canoe here, she's trying to separate from the country right now. How's this building Canada strong going to work if Alberta is no longer part of the country? Again, that's not going to happen. It can't, for a multitude of reasons. But why are you actively working with someone who is trying to promote separation? Like, why? Mark could literally make it a condition of this pipeline that you have to quit this rhetoric. Nope. Just wants to keep on fanning the flames of hatred and climate change. So here we have Rachel Gilmore again tweeting out this clip, saying the pipeline announcement begins with Carney's acknowledging without a hint of irony the biblical weather in Ottawa yesterday, talking about Canada Day being cancelled. Extreme weather, huh? Like the kind exacerbated by climate change? You don't say.
Sorry, by the way, let me start by just with a quick apologies. The weather, biblical weather last night in Ottawa meant that I couldn't make it to Edmonton, couldn't make it to Mill Woods for Canada Day. Celebrate.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more into that in just a moment. But here we have Brandy Moran, who is an Indigenous reporter. She does amazing work. Please support her if you can. She says, my latest is out via Indigenous Insider. While the planet burns and Indigenous nations pay the price, Ottawa and Alberta just announced a $200 billion pipeline and called it the time for action. Danielle Smith says Canada needs to offer the world stable, democratic and reliable energy. But her own government can't offer stability to the First Nations in Alberta, fighting them in court, facing accusations of treason, while community downstream of the oil sands still waiting for a single answer about why its cancer rates are 25% above the rest of Alberta. And First Nations won't see a cent of the profits. Alberta has collected over $315 billion in oil and gas royalties since 1974. Treaty nations have received 0% of it, thanks to a 1930 deal they never had a seat at. This is happening while First Nation communities, just 5% of Canada's population, account for 42% of all wildfire evacuations in the country. Nearly 45,000 people from 61 on-reserve First Nations were displaced by fire last year alone. This is an emergency Ottawa keeps rebranding as a job announcement. Land defenders have been arrested by the hundreds trying to protect the same corridor. Nations have already said on the record that no amount of money changes their answer. No. This is what nation building actually looks like. And then you can go follow her on Substack. So what was that Mark was saying here? Partnering with Indigenous peoples, are you? Not what they're saying. Let's see. This is her Substack here. I'll toss it into the SandBox. And so then we have Gil here also saying, the truth is they wouldn't invest because they knew our governments would do it for them. I can just imagine the board meetings. Why spend our money when we can spend public money? They're laughing at our politicians. Yes. And so I have an article here that we're going to get into, but Carney had initially said that no public money. This was based on private investment. But you see, you run into this issue where everything keeps on getting canceled because of the controversies and protests and stuff. And so businesses don't feel safe investing. Not to mention a lot of the global powers out there realize that oil is going the way of the dinosaurs, literally. And so they're moving on. And so by the time a lot of this is up and going and available for sale, the rest of the world won't want to buy it. They won't. And so the breakdown had tweeted out, when pressed on why there wasn't enough private interest in the pipeline and why taxpayer money is required, Smith responded by basically saying that neither she nor the feds could convince private equity that the project wouldn't be canceled. So taxpayers are picking it up. That might be an indication of something about how well this is not going to go.
Jeff Jones, the Globe and Mail. So after 7 months, this project will now require government support in terms of equity. Why do you think that it remains too risky for the private sector to run with it by itself?
I would say that we did have a number of projects, and I can elaborate on them. I mean, we did have Northern Gateway that had all of its approvals, and they were then canceled. We did have Keystone XL, who had all of its approvals and were starting to build pipelines across the border, and a presidential permit was canceled. We had Energy East that was $1 billion into a regulatory approval process and couldn't see the way to a finish line, so it was canceled. So we have pipeline companies that have literally spent billions of dollars in recent years on failed regulatory approval processes.
Yeah, they all failed before and they don't want to risk it again because, isn't that the whole point of capitalism? Is the risks? The risk that you have to put into invest in it and hope that it'll pay off? Because it will be the companies that profit from this, not Canada. We won't get that money back.
So that's the environment we're finding ourselves in. And so it does take some work, I think, to make sure that the private sector proponents understand that this is a real process. There's a real commitment on the part of all three parties, myself, as well as the Premier of British Columbia, as well as the Prime Minister, to get this project to the finish line. So what the share of the private sector stake will be, that remains to be seen. Maybe over time, as more and more certainty comes in, maybe we'll be talking with Scott about him wanting to take on a larger and larger share. But we want to make sure that a company knows that we're walking this path with them, so that we can get it to the end. And I won't speak
Yeah, private investors, we got you covered. You don't have to worry about your bottom line. You don't have to risk shit. We'll do it for you with public money.
For the Prime Minister, but I did notice that they have already received a over $1 billion dividend payment from the Trans Mountain pipeline. And so it seems to me that once you get through the construction process and you start earning revenue, it is an incredibly lucrative type of infrastructure that will benefit taxpayers. That was our consideration as well.
And so Stephen Guilbeault, who stepped down as his role as a minister but still remained in the caucus, who is now saying that he's going to step down completely, over the summer session where no votes will be happening, so it doesn't matter anyway. He's getting a little upset with this because he used to be the Minister of Environment under Justin Trudeau. He's a minister that actually cared about the issue. Because sometimes you get ministers that don't know anything about whatever they're ministering over, but he actually cared about the environment and he was upset with what Mark Carney was doing. And so he finally, after enough pressure, decided that he would eventually step down, again, when it has actual no influence or impact on anything. But woke Shrek here is just saying, getting a little black-pilled by the total lack of pushback from our political class on Carney, taking us back to a century on climate policy. Seemingly the only people that have spoken out are Avi Lewis, leader of the federal NDP, and the ghost of Stephen Guilbeault. Because this is what Stephen Guilbeault has put into an article. 3 takeaways from today's climate and energy announcement. Good news, or less bad news. If a pipeline to BC is built, it will take the southern route, which will mean less environmental impacts and less opposition from Indigenous nations. Well, you get no environmental impacts with no pipeline. Bad news, after promising in the MOU that if a pipeline was to be built, it would have to be financed and operated by the private sector, we've learned that Canada and Alberta will be equal partners. Another project will be funded by taxpayers, even as oil companies are expected to earn over $60 billion in profits this year. It looks clear now that the clean electricity regulations will be, if not abolished, seriously weakened to allow more fossil fuel electricity generation, even if it's more polluting and expensive for ratepayers. Renewables are now cheaper than all forms of electricity. All of this is happening as we are seeing heat waves hitting numerous corners of the globe, as northern Quebec is seeing 4 times the number of forest fires we would have normally have this time of year. And Avi Lewis is also, again, one of the ones pushing back on it, saying today's announcement shows what the federal government will protect above all else, the profit of big oil companies. As we commemorate the 5th anniversary of the heat wave that claimed the lives of 619 people in British Columbia, I'm pretty sure it was higher than that, unofficially, and many regions of the country are currently facing extreme weather conditions. Canadians deserve leaders who protect them. Instead, this government persists with solutions that have failed the past and exposes us to greater dangers, risk, and insecurity. Due to the obscure and confusing ownership structure in the public-private partnership, it is highly likely that we, the public, will not only have to bear the risk and damages, but also shoulder the majority of the costs. Canada's New Democrat unequivocally oppose this pipeline project. The pipeline project will only lead to the courts. It ignores the federal government's legal duty to meaningfully consult Indigenous nations, including those of Treaty Number 8 in Alberta, threatens endangered species like the killer whales. Rachel Gilmore, if you go to her YouTube channel, she has a video on this too, and she talks about how this pipeline would basically kill off this endangered species pod of killer whales. They'd just be gone. That particular kind of killer whale would just be dead. Wiped off the face of the earth. Yeah, you can go to her channel to see her video on this as well. So, yeah. I don't need to finish reading that. You get the point? And so this article here just says, unable to find a private company to back pipeline, governments resort to 90% taxpayer ownership. Today's announcement breaks 2 promises that the federal and Alberta governments have repeatedly made to Canadians, that a pipeline would privately finance and would be contingent on oil sand companies reducing their emissions. I've read over this article, but as some of you might be hearing. My voice is not doing the greatest, so I will toss this into the SandBox so that you can finish reading this if you like. But yeah, it's basically saying that these were the promises that were made once upon a time with the MOU. That, oh no, it's just private, you know, if private companies do this, then we'll do it, but that's not happening. And all of the stuff about protecting the climate and carbon capture, and that's it's all gone. It's all gone. So here we have, you know, Mark Carney. We're using Canada's natural advantage to build world-class energy projects that bring down the costs, create thousands of new high-paying careers, and lower emissions. We're building a cleaner future that only Canada can. As this person points out, you announced a new oil pipeline yesterday. It's like there's two Mark Carneys out there. Maybe one is AI. Somebody is mentioning that his videos look AI. Maybe one is an AI Mark Carney and the other one is not. Or maybe he's trying to filter these through different algorithms, and so his supporters only see this one and then industry only see the other one. Like, how can he post this right now when we're not working towards renewable energies? I haven't heard anything about solar power panel plant. You know, I haven't heard about wind turbine factory being made and how we're going to be switching over to these renewables anytime now. Nothing. Nothing. But announcements about oil pipelines. The fucking gall of this man. Yeah, some people, you announced yesterday that climate emissions would be going up and planned a pipeline, you lying fuck. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you call him out. Mark Carney's just going to do his thing and put out the propaganda he wants. It doesn't matter that people are saying it. You know, you announced a new oil pipeline yesterday. Fuck you. I don't know about that. Mark Carney, who consumed more carbon than a small city as he globetrots on his jets lecturing us about carbon footprint. Then again, you can't be a climate crusader unless you're a giant hypocrite. Language, people. Some of those tweets are not appropriate for me to read out. So, all of this stuff about him saying, yeah, we're going to have to ignore our previous targets when it comes to, you know, the environment and emissions and stuff like that. Canada Day had to be cancelled due to extreme weather. So Theo says Ottawa is canceling its Canada Day celebration due to extreme weather events one day after Carney put out a video saying he had to dismantle Canada's climate policies because they were pulling the country apart. Can't make this shit up, folks. Yeah. No, Carney said it'd be too divisive. It'd be difficult. Yeah, no. Economy, all that sort of stuff. How about to the people whose homes were damaged in this? So Canadian Heritage had tweeted, in the interest of public safety and due to extreme weather and conditions of the site, we unfortunately have made the difficult decision to cancel the National Day evening show. The National Canada Day evening show. Yeah. Rachel also pointing it out, Canada Day extreme weather brought to you by climate change, which Carney announced yesterday. We can't afford more to properly fight, and Canada Day canceled due to woke. Seek shelter. It's not a sign you want to see when you're in a crowd. Because Ottawa does get hit by tornadoes. So, whew. Now, kind of related, but scaled down to municipal. I did want to touch on this because, again, it's all about that dinosaur thing that I was talking about. And Philip, I think you were asking, the series was called Dinosaurs. I think. what was it, in the 90s? And it's a sitcom with dinosaur puppets. And it really is just, you know, the series finale where the industry guy, the greedy, the villain of the series, was laughing over all the money he was going to make from the heaters that he was going to sell because of the destruction he wrought in bringing the Ice Age. And we are literally seeing this in reverse right now, where we have leaders gleeful over the money that they're going to make in the short term, while people are dying in the heat, and all they do is say, just get an air conditioner and things will be all right. Because here we have Brad Bradford. Yes, that is a real name. He's running to be mayor of Toronto. And so he says, Toronto is going to be in a hot one the coming days. Drink plenty of water and find some shade or AC and check in on people in your life who might need a little extra support. Stay cool, stay safe. Yeah. Well, that monster voted against giving bottled water to the homeless during heat waves. I really hope this asshole doesn't become mayor of Toronto, because there's also this. Toronto is at a turning point. We need real change and fundamentally different approach that get back to basic actually moves the city forward. Now, why am I highlighting turning points right there? Well, that's because Turning Point Canada is endorsing him to be mayor of Toronto. So that way, more homeless people can die. Yeah, he voted against giving water to people who were unhoused during a heat wave. Probably shutting down cooling centers and all that sort of stuff. There's no way to prove it, but I would strongly suspect that some people did die as a result of that. If they don't get the water and whatnot. Statement from Turning Points Foundation. Toronto stands at a crossroad. Leadership matters, and bold leadership is exactly what this city needs. Turning Points Canada Foundation acknowledges that Branford has officially registered to run for mayor of Toronto. A true family man who understands the word family. His commitment to community, family values, and practical city building reflects the kind of leadership many Canadians are demanding. At a time where trust in leadership is being questioned across the city of Toronto, across the country, Toronto deserves a leader focused on results, safety, and accountability, and who gives a fuck? Faith, family, freedom. We stand on guard for thee. They're endorsing Brad Branford. But here, people are pushing back. So AI centers also will be absolutely devastating to the environment. The amount of water that they use, the destruction for the construction, the waste product that they create, all of it. And so Avi Lewis is just saying, inspiring to see so many people pushing back against corporate AI data centers unleashed in their communities without democratic debate. The Liberal government is all in on AI hype, fueled by tech giants and wealthy investors. But people will not stand by. The Carney government can't race ahead with this world-changing technology without the guardrails we need to protect our jobs, data privacy, land, water, and resources. Just last week, Hamilton put a pause on a new AI data centers, giving local governments time to enact strong safeguards and make sure some of the benefits flow to people, not just tech giants. We must do the same nationally. There's too much at stake. We don't want to be looking back and wishing we had done more once the damage is already done. A little too late on that one. So hundreds have gathered in Vancouver to protest artificial intelligence and the construction of AI. Data centers. This can work. If the politicians won't do what we say, we have to force them. We have to demand it. The 1% isn't going to change the status quo out of the goodness of their hearts because they don't have one. No, we have to force them to change. We have to apply that pressure. But a little good news related to climate stuff. Just Stop Oil had posted this, and this is from the UK. Another 7 Just Stop Oil supporters acquitted after Waterloo Bridge show slow march. So 7 Just Stop Oil supporters were found not guilty at a South Hawk Crown Court today, 2.5 years after a slow marching on Waterloo Bridge to demand an end to oil and gas licensing. So I will toss this good news into the SandBox. Okay, so that is the end. That was a long docket. I have 2 more dockets to go. They're not as long. They're on the shorter side. Just making sure I don't need any of those tabs after I close them. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So, check in the SandBox. Okay, saw the masking stuff about the Patriot March. Grand Theft Autobot, if there was a colony of right-wingers, I wonder how long it would be before they start attacking and killing each other. Oh, not long at all. Okay, that's my CTV News article. Philip Blair, Carney and Trump, best friends forever. Grand Theft Autobot, I've seen it. That's finale was dark and oddly prophetic, talking about the dinosaur series. Yeah. Hello, Flow Snake. Welcome to the SandBox. Also saying we had storms and storms in the UK. Hello, Portillo Moment. A rise in global temperature of 4 degrees C is estimated to cost up to 4 billion lives. Nobody's pension is going to look good after that. Yeah. There's no way to say, like, to be able to predict, because part of the problem of predicting climate change to begin with is that there were so many variables that couldn't be accounted for because they only were revealed when the climate change started. Things like how much the ocean would expand. Because it's like, oh, okay, if all this water from the glaciers gets put into the ocean, this is how high it's going to raise. But then they realize, oh, but we also weren't accounting for the fact that the water will be warmer. And when water is warmer, it also expands. So there'll be even more volume of water that way. You know, when they do the estimates, like 4 billion lives, that's at the extraordinarily high end. That is like worst case scenario stuff. I don't think it would be worst case scenario, but it doesn't have to be devastating. The amount of lives that are going to be lost, and it's mostly going to be the global south, you know, the people least responsible for it. Countries that have populations that are in dire poverty, they'll be the first to go. And the West will just be counting the money and telling people to get air conditioners while they're investing in air conditioning companies. And there's some people, I recommend not putting any religion up on a pedestal. See some people talking about Buddhism and stuff. Just no religion should be put on a pedestal. Buddhists are responsible for the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar. Just saying. It should be, you know, principles not based in religion, that get people to turn countries around, you know, like a progressive ideology versus a religion. Because people use religions to manipulate them to serve their purpose and to defend their actions they know are wrong. I'm against institutionalized religion. Have your own religion, I don't care. But institutionalized religions, I'm absolutely against. Grand Theft Autobot, unless we do a Jurassic Park thing, use DNA and cloning to revive the dinosaurs so we can kill them and wait for the remains to become more sweet, deliciously oil. Yeah. Talking about how, you know, oil is going way of the dinosaurs. Philip Blair, 1930, dang. Yeah, there's a lot of laws put in place governing indigenous peoples that were put in place without their say, input, anything decades ago that still haven't been turned around. Like, just look at the Indian Act. That's still in effect. That makes indigenous peoples second-class citizens. Trevor Borens, welcome to the SandBox. I didn't have very high hopes for Carney, and yet he is very disappointing. Yeah. It's not that I was hoping, I was just open. I was open for him to not be horrible. I didn't imagine it would get this bad. Yes, Flow Snake. Rachel Gilmore does amazing work. Hello, Morbius. Welcome to the SandBox. Grand Theft Auto, LOL, canceled due to woke. Now I want to see whether people talking about woke storms. Yeah. Philip Blair, how do you survive extreme heat without water? That's kind of the point. They're fine with vulnerable people dying in these weather conditions. I did a video about the heat dome that was over BC that Avi Lewis was referencing earlier. Back when I was just doing video essays, so people can always go back and check out that video essay I did. But there's a phrase that I know because I live it, I see it so well, that a lot of commentators don't recognize, and that's the people with the least suffer the most. So when there's these floods where you hear something like, oh, 1,000 basements were flooded, where do the lowest income people usually have apartments? People die in those situations because they don't get out of their apartment on time. If you live with disabilities, if you can't run, you don't survive. There were people who died in a fire. A man had to leave his senior parents in a ditch and hope for the best because they couldn't run. They didn't make it. You know, if you're blind, if you need any sort of walking, like a cane or a walker or anything of that sort of wheelchair, how do you flee? If you don't drive, if you can't afford to get in, if you're unhoused and you're unkept because you're unhoused, so in the heat you're going to smell, you might not be clean, you get kicked out of businesses. No areas accept you in. So you can't go to cooling, a lot of places to just cool down and sit. Then they ban or they say, no, we're not going to hand out water to people who are unhoused. Also, oh, we'll announce where these cooling centers are. We'll send out alerts on people's phones. unhoused people notoriously always have their phone with them. So there's the people with the least suffer the most. Your house burns down, you don't have insurance. Your workplace burns down, living paycheck to paycheck. You're done. Yeah. Philip Blair, what's the point of AI data centers when minimally adequate healthcare and education and housing are not accessible? Hello, commie economist. Welcome to the SandBox. And yes, please like the stream. It helps it get into the algorithms. Flow Snake Blimey, it's called the Indian Act? Yeah. That's usually the only time I use that term. Is when I mention it's the Indian Act. It's still in place in Canada. And it makes Indigenous peoples second-class citizens. Let's see. Rusty, I think billionaires need to appreciate the illusionary nature of wealth. Musk making decisions based on petty tantrums that kill millions. That is a serious problem. Hello. You've never actually, I think, told me how to pronounce your name. Not that it would help much because I still wouldn't do it right. Harkenfell, yeah, I think you know I'm talking about you. Welcome to the SandBox. Okay, let's get on to, what was it? What was it next? I think provincial news. Not that one. Right, I need to keep those open. I can close those once I get into this. And it's a smaller docket. Okay. Then I can close those two tabs. No, not those two. These two. There we go. I can close these. Doom. There we go. So Mike Schreiner is the leader of the Ontario Green Party. I really wish he had gotten in. Or just his platform was good. He's very I don't want to say campy, but he's oh fuck, what would be the right word on his personality? Approachable. He comes across as very friendly and stuff of that sort. But for some reason they never do well, which is unfortunate because a lot of his policies were good. What's the word that I am looking for? He's very country. I don't know. But talking about environmental destruction, Doug Ford wants to shove a highway through very sensitive lands. And studies have shown it's not going to decrease traffic congestion. Not by any measurable, beneficial amount. What would is a train from, there's a train that could go through part of this country that's not even all that long that would service about half the population. No. It's going to make a new highway because buddies want money. And so this is his video about it and just the destruction it would bring to the environment.
Wow.
I hope this music isn't too much of a problem. Please, politicians, when you make ads like this, make sure people can share them on YouTube. But he is talking throughout this, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But if you're watching this live stream in the future, hello, futurers. Hi, from the past. And you don't see this, it's because I had to cut it out after the fact.
I can't believe Doug Ford wants to pave over all of this. This little stream is home to the most endangered fish in the entire country, the red-side dace. Highway 413 would cross 132 streams, 22 of them home to the endangered red-side dace. Far too many eastern milk snakes are killed by people because they think they're venomous.
It's such a cute snake.
But they're not. Actually, they're completely harmless. And frankly, they've been living in Ontario longer than we have been. I don't know, maybe we'll find one in here. Throw a rope down here for me. It takes decades for snapping turtles to be able to reproduce, and far too many of them are killed crossing roadways to lay their eggs.
I have driven on roads that have like, watch out for turtle signs and stuff like that. And then, you know, I've had friends in the car and stuff, and we'd see a snapping turtle trying to cross the road. So one of them would get out to help that turtle. Be very fucking careful with a snapping turtle. Like, they can take out part of your hand like that in a snap, hence the name. And so, you know, seeing him pick it up by the tail and like hold it out arm's length and stuff, and its mouth is just like, I'm going to eat you. They're like carnivorous, pretty much treat them like carnivorous turtles. They are nothing to play. Snapping turtles are carnivorous turtles. Actually, yeah, they might actually be. But yeah, they're like the alligator of turtles. So be very careful with them. And if you're on these side roads in Ontario, just watch the road. You know, turtle crossings is a thing. They take a while.
And now Doug Ford wants to ram a bigger, faster highway right through the middle of their habitat.
And also, it can be very dangerous to run over a turtle for reasons that it can cause an accident. Not to mention, it would kill the turtle.
The rusty patch bumblebee used to live right along this river. It's now one of the most endangered insects on the entire planet. Pesticide use, habitat loss, a warming climate, all affecting it. And now Highway 413 will make it worse. This is not an accident. This is being done by a government that's weakening the rules so the rich and powerful can cash in at our expense.
So you had Bill C5 and Bill 5. One was provincial, one was federal, that do pretty much the same thing. And in those bills that got passed, it allows them to override regulations, laws put in place to protect the environment and stuff if it's a project deemed in the interest of the province or the nation. So, like I was mentioning, there's that video with Rachel Gilmore. She's talking about the oil pipeline and how that would literally wipe out a certain species of killer whales. Like, they're just gone. And here's a highway that's not needed that would just destroy habitats, wipe out species. And this is not the future I thought was going to happen when I was a kid.
They're not giving you a voice. They're certainly not giving the snakes, the bees, the turtles, and other endangered species a voice. Instead, they're just ramming it through, destroying the places we love in Ontario.
So we're going to be jumping around a little bit with this provincial news, but here we have class action launched in response to separatist voter data leak. I'm not going to read over the entire article, but the Orchid is a good source. And this is about Alberta, because in Alberta, they doxed half the province. They doxed half the fucking province. So the June 25th statement of claim names the Alberta government and Chief Electoral Office, as well as the Centurion Project, David Parker, and the Republican Party of Alberta, which is a thing, as defendants. So just a little bit from it. A retired lawyer in rural Alberta has launched a class action lawsuit on behalf of nearly 3 million Albertans whose personal information became publicly accessible in a separatist organization's voter identification database. The June 25th statement claims names the Alberta government and all those people that I just said. The breach has exposed millions of Albertans to loss of privacy, misuse of personal information, identity-related risk, profiling, targeting, harassment, and significant distress arising from the loss of control over their personal information, reads the statement. And so the way that this was narrowed down to who did it was electoral lists are seeded with fake names. And they all get different fake names depending on who they send it out to. So if a list is leaked out, they can say, okay, it was this group because these fake names were on it. But this is something that I will be following up with as more information becomes available. But for now, I'm just going to toss this into the SandBox so that you can read up on that if you like. Moving along. So OPSU, Local 358 went to the lake in front of Doug Ford's mega cottage to protest. This is a mega cottage he had built while he was premier of this province. That is like twice the size of his other cottage. So he had this built. This wasn't his cottage when he started. This was the cottage he had built while he was premier, and his old cottage is now available as an Airbnb. I kid you not. I did a story on this way back when. This cottage, this is a cottage that's like the size of an apartment building. Now, Doug Ford was not there at the time. He was in Utah, but it's good to see this. Some people in the comments, oh, you shouldn't bug people at their homes. No, fuck that. Doug Ford deserves to never be comfortable with what he's done. Yeah, so unfortunately he was in Utah, but here's an article about it. So protesters paddled to Doug Ford's cottage in kayaks. The group of OPSU members made their way to the Premier's Muskoka shoreline to demand retroactive wage increases following the repeal of Bill 124. I covered that way back when too. It's just he wasn't going to give teachers a pay raise to meet inflation, so they were basically getting a pay cut, and they had to go to the courts, and the courts ruled in favor of the teachers, but then they ruled for back pay, which Doug Ford hasn't done. Yeah. So Premier Doug Ford's cottage received a visit around Canada Day holiday. It wasn't the Prime Minister. Prime Minister's returning for more deep fireside conversations late into the night, but a group of Ontario Public Service Employee Union members who paddled their way to a shoreline in kayaks protesting Bill 124. Today's Local 358 joined fellow OPSU locals to paddle to Doug Ford's cottage with one clear message: we aren't going away. We won't stop until public services are properly funded and workers receive a full Bill 124 remedy, said an Instagram post on behalf of the chapter representing development services workers in Haliburton, Peterborough, and Lindsay areas. Bill 124, Protecting Sustainable Public Sector for Future Generations Act, was passed by the legislature in 2019, only to later be ruled unconstitutional by the Ontario Superior Court and repealed. The legislation capped public sector salary increases at 1% per year for a 3-year period, which the Ford government framed as reflecting the fiscal situation of the province to protect the sustainability of public services. Gee, where have we heard that bullshit recently, Mark Carney? So a March 2026 statement on the union's website said 40,000 members were still awaiting a retroactive wage increase following the repeal. Workers awaiting payment are from sectors including children's aid, mental health, and addictions and community health care professionals. Around 4,000 Ontario community and social service workers are currently strike, with Bill 124 cited as one of their concerns. So there is a strike going on in Ontario, not that you even know if you pay attention to mainstream media. That's about Bill 124, not about the current strikers. So people have been protesting Doug Ford, and some of his supporters get a little peeved at it. So JP Hornick from OPSU says 6 weeks on strike, thousands of community service workers are asking to be heard.
Mr. Ford, please meet with Ontario workers. Please.
So this is on the back of Ford Fest, where they were protesting at Ford Fest, which really upset some people. But apparently there was some shenanigans going on there that they'll yell out about here. And this guy is so pathetic. This guy right here in the blue shirt. You'll see why.
Thank you. Please have a chat with us, sir. We would love to talk to you.
Premier Ford, over 4,000 workers are on strike across the province.
We work with Ontario's most vulnerable people, sir. Could we just explain why we're on strike? We work with children and babies. We're having a hard time getting a hold of you. We just want to have a meeting.
Yeah, he gives out his personal phone number to people, but, you know, it's not like he would actually care or talk to these people who are on strike. You know, he'll get back to the average Joe about the pothole in front of his house, but nothing to do about these striking workers.
If you could find a time to book a meeting with us, that'd be amazing. We'd love to meet.
And the thing is that they wouldn't have to go to his cottage. They wouldn't have to be harassing him here if he actually went to the tables. Like, that's the thing. He's not listening. So they have to do these things in order to try to be heard. But if he actually cared and got involved, they wouldn't have to be doing this bullshit. It's not bullshit, but you know what I mean.
Premier Ford, have you anything to say?
We'd like to go back to work with artistic autism and developmental disabilities. So would you think about setting a meeting with us, please? We are Ontario workers as well, Mr. Ford.
You guys already ruined Ford Fest for him. Why don't you leave him alone?
That's the guy in the blue shirt that said, "You ruined Ford Fest, leave him alone." No, he's the premier of the province. He gets to be harassed when he's fucking us over.
We're not ruining anything. We're walking.
Hi, Mr. Ford. I was at Ford Fest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, is that the fest where they manipulated the photos, turned our purple into blue?
Okay, let's get a picture. Can someone take a picture of me and Mr. Ford?
Sure, on your phone.
I'm taking a video right here.
Keep it recording.
Have you anything to say to the over 4,000
That guy is such a pathetic dweeb. Hey, Ford, Daddy Ford, pay attention to me, Daddy Ford.
striking workers with OPSU? Premier Doug Ford, have you anything to say?
Hopefully we can get a meeting soon.
Nothing at all, huh?
Anyway, on to this. So Ontario Education Minister urges parents not to pull kids from schools for sports. Ontario Education Minister Paul Calandra is urging parents not to pull their kids out of school for sports tournaments next year when the new attendance rules begin. Starting in the upcoming school year, attendance and participation will make up either 10 or 15% of a final mark, depending on the grade, which is problematic if a child is dealing with an illness or there's family issues and all this sort of stuff. Like, grades shouldn't be dependent on attendance. And if a parent wants to pull their kid out of class so that they can go and enjoy being a kid in a sports tournament, fucking let them. In grades 9 and 10, attendance and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I just really wanted to get to that because Paul Calandra, Minister of Education for Ontario. Paul Calandra advises parents to keep them in school. Meanwhile, Doug Ford, government embarks on a 21-week break, won't return until late October. The Ontario legislature needs a new absentee policy. If they were graded on attendance, they'd be failing. That's all I wanted to say about that. Okay. Like I said, this was a shorter docket, which is nice. Close, 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 close. And have a good night, Flow Snake. And I don't know why, when you said snake pit, I was thinking, oh yeah, garter snake mating season. That is an insane snake pit if you see videos of that. It's basically like there's one female garter snake and then like just this mass of smaller males. Like, it's just... If you're afraid of snakes, it is a nightmare beyond belief. But feel free to Google it or go on YouTube and look up like garter snake mating season. Anyway, I don't know why when you said snake pit, I just thought of that. But have a good night. Okay, check in the SandBox. Okay. Saw that, saw that. Yes, Harfelkel Harthany. I remember you. And I appreciate participation in the sandbox. It always helps in the algorithms. Turtles are based, Philip Blair. The Wild West, so tired from that heat wave, don't know how we're going to survive. Yeah, we have a few days here in my area where I don't have to have the AC blasting, but it's just until the next one. Ugh. I crave winters so much now these days because I can't handle the heat. I'm fortunate though that at least this apartment has AC, so it's manageable, but I still have problems sleeping and stuff, and it's nice, but it's not like a natural feeling of comfort, if that makes any sense. And then I remembered when I didn't have AC and I worked in an office that was super air conditioned. Physics didn't play a part in that building because I was on the second floor, the top floor, which was always cooler than the bottom floor for some reason. And so then I would be at, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night because it was so hot and tossing and turning. And suddenly I get into work and it's so cold that it was almost impossible to stay awake because immediately my body's like, you can shut down now. It was so hard to function at work that way. Hello, Atticus among us. Welcome to the sandbox. It's weird now that I have the desktop set up kind of the way that I want, is that sometimes I can actually see what you're responding to if it's recent because of the delay, and then I can see my actions and stuff. So it's like, now I know if you're going to respond to that joke I just said 30 seconds ago. See. Atticus among us. In a previous life, I did research on the California giant gardener snake. Oh, no, we're not screened for neurodivergence, Philip Blair. Definitely wasn't when I was a kid. Even though, looking back, kind of obvious. Okay, I have one more docket to go. Again, it's not a terribly long docket, but it's important. And then we can just chill out. I'll show off my drawing again, and then I'll relax, and yeah. Now's the time to put a super chat in if you want me to answer your question. I'll do it anyway. That's the thing. You put something. Now's the time to be a member of the sandbox, really. Like to just be participating in it, because when my channel takes off, I won't be able to respond to everything as much as I do. So now's the time. You can ask questions and stuff like that, and I'll get to you. I'll get to you. Super chats are nice, of course, because they always help, but I also understand that a lot of my audience reflects me living with poverty. So, only do what you can when you can. Only help out my channel if you can. Make sure all your other needs are taken care of. And then afterwards, if you have a little extra, I appreciate it. But never, never sacrifice anything you need for my channel or to get something off my Amazon wish list or anything of that sort. Just never, never, never. Where? Oh, that one. There we go. And then I can close this tab. Close. Okay. So, I was talking earlier about Jamel Javani and how one of his constituents, a Muslim man, is being under attack because he has a small free-range farm of like ducks and pigeons and rabbits and stuff, that a rumor was started that he was doing a weird slaughterhouse type thing when he's not. And Jamel Javani hasn't said anything about it, despite this guy being in his riding. And then during the video that I was showing people, I realized I need to look that up. Not only is this person a constituent of his, he also ran for the Conservative Party once upon a time. And Jamel Javani is still not giving him the time of day. Or saying, you know what, maybe people should can it with this conspiracy theory bullshit about a slaughter farm there and all that sort of stuff. He's doing nothing to support this guy. Because if he were to actually say something, if he were to actually tell people to back off, they'd probably listen to him. But here he is instead, just stoking the flames. We should never accept a political culture in which politicians have to answer about not attending events like this. Those who should attend be the ones answering questions. Because here's Prime Minister Mark Carney. He doesn't give a shit about queer folks. Just to be clear, he doesn't give a shit about queer folks. But here he is, shaking the hand of a man who's wearing a puppy mask. Will your eyes ever be the same? Can you handle it? Leather at a pride parade? There's like too much covering on this guy, basically. His face is covered. He has too much articles of clothing on. You're getting mad that he has his face covered. Oh no, he's in a puppy mask. They might do weird kinky shit when they're by themselves, not out in public, but you know, when they're by themselves, they might do kinky shit together. Not Mark Carney, again, he doesn't like queer folks and probably has no kink whatsoever other than raising money for, you know, oil industries. But like these two guys here, they might do like kinky shit together. Ooh, the horror, I say. Wearing a puppy mask is not explicitly sexual. Is wearing a mini skirt, tank top, are those explicitly sexual? Or is it just an expression of who you are? They're not engaging in anything sexual. It's an article of clothing. In of itself, it's not sexual. It's people who sexualize it. And then there's people who are furries that just like to wear the costumes and stuff like that as part of a persona. It's not inherently sexual. Sex can be added to it, of course. For some people, definitely behind closed doors. But at the Pride Parade, it's just them expressing themselves. Get over it, you fucking snowflakes. And live a little. Experiment. Have some fun. But the thing is that Jamel Javani didn't end there with his little rants against queer folks. This isn't where it stopped. He went on and on and on because, again, he's all about the Restore the North, as in like a Turning Points type organization up here in Canada. So here he says, why is Carney taking pictures with half-naked dudes in perfect costumes while kids are around? He should explain himself. Sign here. No, don't sign there.
Yesterday, I heard from many Canadians who had a lot of thoughts and opinions concerning my comments about Mark Carney and the Pride Parade.
How about keep your comments to yourself? Let people live their lives. Fuck off. Maybe go talk to your constituent that is being harassed, threatened, having drones flown on his property, having a fucking protest show up there because of a slaughterhouse that doesn't exist. How about you take care of that?
So let me be very clear. I think it's shameful that we have a prime minister shaking hands with half-naked dudes wearing perverted costumes.
If he was shaking the hand of a guy in a bathing suit, would that be perverted? Would that be him shaking a hand with a half or mostly naked dude? If he was in a bathing suit, or if somebody was like in a bikini or something, or short shorts and tank top. Some of those people, they're walking around pretty much half naked. Some people, you know what? Sometimes I do this, where I will wear an outfit that will. Is this perverted? When I wear an outfit that pops these up nice and bouncy like this? Is this perverted? People have different ways of expressing themselves. Let people live their fucking lives. Don't be so concerned with what people are doing in their own private life.
At a parade. I also think it's especially shameful that there were children present during that spectacle.
So there are adult parts of Pride and there are family parts of the Pride. If parents are taking their children to adult parts of the Pride, that's the parents that you should be talking about, not the people there trying to have a good time and enjoying themselves. Also, it's Pride. And do you know what? Nudity in of itself, like if the person was even flat out naked, that's not technically illegal. There was a whole bunch of jargon on it. I don't think I have it saved here, but if it's not causing a public harm, it's a whatever. Because they have like the naked bicycle ride in Toronto. And it is exactly what I just said. I believe it's a fundraiser. Yeah. Just if you're at Pride Parade and people are expressing themselves and their bodies, you can do so in non-sexual ways. It is possible to not sexualize people. Just saying, it's possible. It's a thing. It's a thing. You cannot sexualize people. You can go to a gym and not sexualize everyone there, right? For conservatives, though, that seems exceedingly hard.
Now, we should have a prime minister that is trying to solve our country's problems. We should have serious leadership in this country that wants to address the affordability crisis, serious leadership that wants to create economic opportunity.
Okay, so enough of this. And he has his Restore the North cap on. He still didn't end it there. He continued. Liberals think they get to change this country for the worse without a fight. No. If you're going to promote liberal degeneracy, we will call you out. If you're going to force your values on our kids, we will take a stand. Canada deserves much better than a Carney government. Force your values on our kids? This is not coded homophobic language. It's just flat out there. Talking about basically queer people as degenerates who are trying to force our values, our lifestyle onto children. This is one of our politicians. He could have been, up comforting his constituent who's being harassed and stuff, but no. He has to be making life more difficult for queer folks. And yes, he is best friends with J.D. Vance. Liberal degeneracy, if your party leader was decent human, he'd have immediately boot you from his caucus for your recent comments, MP. But PP is just as homophobic, transphobic, nasty, and divisive as you are. What's your fear? Yeah. So Bev gets into it here too. Just, again, this is horrific language to be using, given the context and the history of how that's been used against queer folks. And so she says, this is exactly the kind of post I would expect people to be calling out, not defending. Degeneracy is not some neutral legal term. It's loaded rhetoric that has historically been used to dehumanize LGBTQ+ people and justify discrimination against them. A police officer of all should understand the difference between enforcing actual laws and using inflammatory language to stigmatize an entire community. And so the police officer she's talking about is who she's quote tweeting right here. Barbara Ball, who says, I don't understand the manufactured outrage over Jamel Javani calling him out degeneracy. By definition, degenerate is someone whose behavior deviates from what is socially morally acceptable. Canada's criminal code is clear. Public nudity and indecency are not acceptable, especially anywhere near children. Only if you look into it, it's actually no. I think, did somebody else put it in here? But it depends on context and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, but that's who Bev is replying to, back to her tweet. If the concern is truly public indecency, then talk about the law. But that is not what Jamel Javani did. He chose a word designed to inflame, divide, and signal exactly who he thinks is acceptable and who is not. And spare me the two-tier justice talking point. Pride events are not a free-for-all, and pretending this is about double standards rather than targeted outrage at LGBTQ+ people is dishonest. Quite frankly, it is deeply disappointing to see a police officer amplify this rhetoric while collecting taxpayer-funded salary. The public should expect better judgment, better professionalism, and much better understanding of how dangerous this language actually is. Okay. Yeah. Just seeing if somebody put the comment in there. Anyway. Yeah, so it does depend on context. There are places where it is legal to be nude. There's nude beaches, all that sort of stuff, nude resorts. But things like if you're in your backyard and your neighbors can see you, you're not allowed to be nude. So there are, there are rules because it's about if you're at an event where that sort of thing is expected, then it doesn't go against like it's not concerned to the public type thing. And again, like there's the naked bike ride that happens. So yeah, but still related to queer issues. Ari here is saying if Riley Gaines didn't have any trans opponents swimming against her, she still would have come in 5th place and nobody would know her name. And so this is the problem right now with the governments that we have in place that are making laws that are bigoted and homophobic. It's making these people feel vindicated for attacking and harassing others. I'm not actually going to listen to this video. I'm just pointing it out. But, it is, they feel like they're winning. And that makes them bolder. And that's going to make them more confident. And in part, especially down in the States, they are. It's horrifying that this is the future that we're going towards right now. That they can harass and stigmatize and exclude groups of people. And be like, yay, we're the good ones. At least there's people like Zach Polanski in the UK who says when trans people are under attack, don't be political. It's not an option. We'll never be silent when Labour government are making life impossibly hard for trans people. We see you and we stand with you. Saying this in the UK again is especially bold considering the laws have basically started the genocide of trans folks in the UK.
And I've been told not to be political today. Well, this is a protest, so let's get political! We are done with politicians having photo shoots, dancing at celebrations, and then voting against our rights. Let us be clear.
And that's Mark Carney for you. He'll go to photo shoots, he'll go to Pride, he'll tweet out memes about the environment and how precious it is, and then vote against it. Oh, okie doke. Well, that's it for that. Who's those? Okay, well, it's time to check the sandbox. Because among us, if an individual can pass the test with a school curriculum, what does it matter how often they make it to class? Yeah. I used to have issues falling asleep in class because undiagnosed sleep apnea when I was younger. And usually it was a certain time of day in particular that was really bad for me. And I remember one of the teachers, he didn't do anything. He didn't bug it. He just let me be because he knew I was a good student, you know? He knew I wasn't sleeping because I was out late partying the night before or anything. But yeah, like if you're a good student and you have that, you do things like that, then what does it matter? Trevor Bourne says this is probably the least conservative thing Carney has done. Yeah, probably. Just showing up and having a good time at Pride. Atticus among us, it's well known that ladies lean to the left when you get excited about a subject. I'm not sure what that means. It's well known that ladies lean to the left. What, lean left? I don't know. Grand Theft Auto, he needs to solve the problems that we conservatives cause, yes. The Wild West, using the Nazi words won't make the Nazis accept you. Rusty, wondering about call-in shows. I've done them rarely. And they're not call-in per se. I set up StreamYards and then people can click the link and we can do like a chat that way. It's not something I do regularly. Just a once in a while fluke thing. So Philip Blair is the angry blue man speaking against degeneracy at concerts in Canada that resemble Mardi Gras, where homophobic bands are singing for hordes of naked straight people. He's okay with some degeneracy. Trevor Bournes, I'm so sick of right-wing dipshits. Yeah, I'm too. Philip Blair, I fall asleep from exhaustion caused by overload. Fall asleep a lot, nearly every day in certain classes. Yeah. Rusty, lots of people in the SandBox have good things to say. Oh. For those who are showing up a little bit late, here's the drawing that I'm currently working on. It's a work in progress. Still have a lot of work to do. But here we go. He's going to look a lot older by the time I'm done because I still have to add his stubble. But luckily, his stubble is all very dark, so I can add that at the end. I still have to do the face smudging, where I finger his face. Don't take that the wrong way. So I smooth out all this the shading because right now it's still very pencil-y. And that really helps the drawing to pop. And then just shading and finer details, wrinkles, things of that sort. So yeah, working on that. Working on the TYT essay. I finished a section about fires, the LA fires, crime/Venezuela gangs. And it's going to be a bit about the union and then some other things. And yeah, it's a long haul. And I got very nervous or worried or anxious. I do. It goes in and out. It goes in and out, my anxiety about it. Because I'm just finishing up the section in crime and I'm like, this is too much. It's too much. It's too detailed. Nobody's going to watch this. Because it's not just a takedown video of TYT. There's also my messaging in there, you know? My points of view on things. It's my commentary and whatnot. So I feel obligated to add that in at times. And sometimes I feel like, are people really going to watch that to hear my commentary? They're just there to watch the TYT takedown type thing. So it's I get self-conscious about it, I suppose, but I'll be able to think a little bit more clear-headed about it when I edit it, because right now it's still just a matter of throwing up everything onto the paper, like just like blah, getting it all out. And then I can start cleaning it up a bit, and hopefully I can have help editing it and stuff. But yeah. Rusty, he needs a halo to look like a Jesuit monk. No, that's him wearing a hoodie. Atticus Among Us, more back shouting than last reveal. Impressive. Yep, no, it's probably going to get darker than that too. I do layers. Trevor Bournes looks amazing. Sandy, why thank you. Yeah, I tend to start light, go dark. That way it's easier to just make sure you're doing it right in the first place and fixing mistakes. But once I start smudging things out, fixing mistakes can be a bit more difficult because you can't necessarily properly erase it no matter how good the eraser is, because you've actually started to like smush down the fibers in the paper. But yeah, still a lot of work to do. And then adding the stubble at the end, he'll look older, but I kid you not, I'll be darkening his skin because he's brown. And also, again, I'm starting light and smoothing it out, and that will really make it pop at that point. And then just like some shading in with the hair and stuff still, and his hoodie, making that probably darker. It's, yeah, still a lot of work to do on it. But yeah. Hasn't even been 4 hours yet, which is good. I need to be ending these earlier because fuck, 5-hour long live streams takes a lot out of me. And I need to, you know, still have dinner and stuff. Thinking about going for a walk. It's going to be not cooking hot tonight, but it'll still be a bit warm. But I miss going out on my walks. I can't go out on my walk when it's too hot, obviously. But I want to get back to thinking about my book. I love thinking about my book. I love living in the world of my book. My book? You know what I'm talking about. I love living in that world. Okay, well, I guess I should do this. But yeah. Now, I'm really hoping that when I do get that TYT essay done and posted, that it does help my channel, because I keep on losing money, but because I lost my dinner theater job because the restaurant went under. Things keep on going up in price, and I'm like, and my disability is not necessarily going up, so yeah, I don't need much to get by. Every little bit helps. So thank you everyone for coming in. I hope you found this informative and entertaining. Please, if you're not following me, but you know, if you've made it this long, I don't need to constantly be pointing to all of these because I'm sure you all know, unless you're brand spanking new to my channel, in which case, welcome. Yeah. Catch me on this space Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Let's see. But yeah, I hope to get the TYT essay, the first draft, done in the next couple weeks. I think I'll be able to pull that off, providing nothing chaotic happens in my life. So the first draft will be done, but still a long way from filming and editing and all that. Anyway, but thank you everyone for coming out. I would say thank mods, but I don't think a single mod showed up today. But I thank them anyway, because when they are here, it's valuable. Thank you to everyone who has helped out financially through becoming a member here, patron, purchasing things off my Amazon wish list. I have something on there that I desperately need to get that you can't buy for me. So there's that. Because it can't be delivered to the post office, which is where my mailing address is. But you know, a $250 Amazon card would go a long way about now. I need a new table before this one collapses. As far as I know, Leah did not reach out to me, Rusty. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's just see. Food is not a luxury. That is correct, Atticus Among Us. Let's see. Just catching people's last minute comments. Grand Theft Auto, I know how you feel. Sandy, cost of living keeps going higher and disability fees up, but not at the same rate. It's not keeping up. Yeah, I know. It's, yeah. Unless my situation changes, this winter will be the last winter I have with a car. And it gets very, very difficult to get around cities like this without a vehicle, but it is what it is. Anyway, enough that. Rusty, I don't know who she is. Like, I can look into her channel, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, so, oh, I have a weird curl going on, don't I? It's really weird. Well, weird curl right here. Anyway, thank you again, everyone, and I will see you again soon. So, oh, right, who are we rating? Are we rating anyone? Let's see, redirect. No, nobody that I am familiar with is live right now. Okay, so you are not being redirected to anyone. So enjoy the rest of your evening, night, week, life. Just enjoy the rest of your life. Anyway. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.